So now the fun begins. I should have got a Red Bull. Yeah. Yes, yes.
What up? Answers by guess.
So
Ooh.
many games, so many questions,
Bud, how are
so
you?
many injuries.
Oh my god, the injuries by itself is just absolutely ridiculous.
But no bye weeks.
That's
No bye
okay.
weeks. You know, I'm kind of glad the NFL changed it. They added that extra game on the season. They used to do like week 4 to 11. Then they kind of tested the week 4 to 13. And now they're like, well, if we're having the extra game, we should make the buys a little later. So we got a couple more weeks till we got to worry about those. But tonight, we got a London game. We got a late night show. It's packed. Questions, games, injuries, and guesstimators. That's right. We have more than one tonight, folks.
Oh, I like it. You know, I always got to say it. Follow us, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, go to TikTok, look for us on Instagram, Twitter, Patreon. Thanks to Frank. Yeah, Patreon. I love it. And don't remember, always look for those hashtag answers by guess and ABGFF. Guess while I am kind of doing some background, go over the Thursday game for us.
I mean, you know, Tuesday I sort of had mentioned it, and I was talking to a lot of people through separate chats, Frank in particular, via PM, Patreon subscriber. You get that luxury. And I basically was saying, I don't like playing Tua. I don't think you should play Tua. I don't even think you should play Waddle. Now, I played Waddle because I didn't have a better choice in our dynasty league, Rob. I didn't really have a better choice. So I went ahead with Waddle. But I didn't like Waddle for the reason of I didn't like Tua getting through the game healthy. Now, I hope he is okay. We know it's a little better than it looked. But Teddy Bridgewater does not like throwing to Waddle. All you got to do is remember back to last year. Waddle didn't blow up until Tua took over. That's Tua's boy from college. And, you know, Teddy doesn't throw to him much. So if you are a Waddle owner, things could be grim until Senor Tua gets back behind center. But it went kind of exactly how I thought it would. I thought Cincinnati would score a touchdown late. They did. I thought it would be to win the game. They already had it in control. I thought Cincinnati would have beaten them even if Tua stayed healthy throughout. And one of the things to point out, if you remember all the way back, you go back, you think all the way to the preseason, where one of the first questions I think that we were asked by Darko, and it could have been somebody else as well, chimed in with the same sort of thing about Jamar Chase. And I said, I don't like Jamar Chase this season, not because I don't like him, because I don't like where he's being drafted, because they have too many other playmakers. And since he is the best, they will take him out of games. And Joe Burrow will have no other choice but to just, okay, I'll just use Boyd. He'll go nuts. Okay, I'll just use Higgins. He'll go nuts. Now I got Hayden Hurst there too. So, you know, I know that Chase came through in the end with a big play. Once Xavier Howard got hurt, he was out of the game. But Chase, you're going to have some weeks like that with him because the defense is just going to bracket him, double cover him. And that's why Higgins and Boyd, but you got to pick the right week. People wanted to play Boyd this week and say he had a good week last week. It's probably Higgins this week. It was Higgins this week. So the game kind of went how we thought. Stay away from those Miami running backs. We've been saying that since day one as well.
All right, dude, that thing was scary, man. It's like embedded in my brain the way Tua looked and stuff like that. No good. Glad to see that he was able to fly back with them.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Teddy is kind of he's going to be underwhelming for this team that was kind of on a trajectory to actually play really well. We'll see what happens, though, man. We will see what happens.
I'm gonna say it's probably 2 or 3 weeks with Tua, and he'll be back.
They have to be on the safe side now. I mean, the fact that they found from the investigation they had to fire that guy, that protocols weren't followed correctly. I think it's going to be, you're right, 2 or 3 weeks, just kind of, hey, you know what? Let's stay off the radar. Let's make sure he's really good this time.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we're gonna do the 1 o'clock games. Then we're gonna answer the questions that were posted
from the group.
Then we're gonna do the rest of the games. Then we're gonna take the live questions.
That
Long show. Sir. Get your Red Bull. I wish I had one. Let's do it.
Coffee.
Smart.
All right.
Wise beyond your years.
So the London game, Minnesota Vikings at the New Orleans Saints. Vikings, you know, I was high on Kirk Cousins. I heard you mention it on the show on Tuesday. He's just not looking the same, man. I don't know. I think this could be a get-right game for him, especially on the other side with, seems like Andy Dalton's going to be the starter. Michael Thomas is out. It's just a lot of, it's a London game, so there's a lot of broadcasting. Who are the players that were starting from both of these teams, especially in an early start, just because it's going to have repercussions on what the rest of the afternoon looks like?
Yeah, I mean, we know about Cousins. He doesn't do well at night in the primetime games. So we would say polar opposite would be what? In the morning, in the twilight games, right? Is that twilight? Twilight in the night.
Twilight, I think, is the other way, but
it
doesn't
matter. The
opposite.
So could he play well? Well, Delvin Cook's going to play. That's a good thing. That sucks if you spend a lot of money on Madison. I was going to say before he was going to play, we would see a little Kene Nwangwu, my boy, which is a little bit of a not a spoiler, but what's the thing? What's the term I'm looking for? I don't know, but a little bit of like an insight into where I'm looking this week with these guys. Everybody went high after because the starter got hurt, like Delvin Cook, so they went high after Madison, and there's a third guy there that you got to think about. And that would have been Kene Nwangwu, but now that Cook's going to play, we forget about that. Thielen, I think Thielen scores another touchdown this week. I think he makes it 2 weeks in a row. I think Irv Smith continues to get more involved with the offense. Justin Jefferson, I think it's going to be tough because he's got the top corner on him. I think that you want to play Justin Jefferson, obviously, but I do think that he has not a huge game, but a game that makes you very happy. I think the Vikings win this one. I think they use all pieces. Who's the other? You're a Vikings fan. I can't think of the dude's name. Munt. Jeffrey Munt is the other tight end for the Vikings. He's been getting involved. He's a blocker, but he's also a pass catcher. So not anybody that you use, but I think KJ Osborne, if you're Amon-Ra St. Brown owner, you can't use him. If your DJ Chark was your pivot, you can't use him because he's out. If you're Keenan Allen, you can't use him. KJ Osborne could give you something in this one because I do think the Vikings are going to be able to do pretty well in this one. With Andy Dalton on the other side, one would think maybe they get some shorter fields, right? But Andy Dalton's a little more careful with the ball than Jameis Winston. So a lot of people are like, oh, it's Andy Dalton. Should I start Chris Olave? Yeah. He's probably a more accurate and safer quarterback to have throwing you the ball than Jameis Winston is. Winston likes to chuck it deep, and that's Olave's game. So those huge blow-ups, and we talked about a couple weeks ago, he's the leader in air yards, which I think is a ridiculously stupid stat because you could just throw it to somebody 50 yards twice in a row, and now he's got 100 air yards, even if it went way over his head or way below him. But either way, I still think you play Olave. No Michael Thomas. I don't know what's going on with Landry, probably a game-time decision. So that, now we have Marquez Callaway back. Dalton did pretty well last year with the Bears. He was good getting the ball to Darnell Mooney. That's why I think he'll be fine getting the ball to Olave. And Callaway can run those little over-the-middle intermediate things. And I think that's where Marquez Callaway could be a sneaky start in this one, whether you're playing DFS or you're living on a prayer. Bon Jovi. One player I really, really love in this game to break out, and everybody's down on him. And Frank Ross is probably going to kill me. He's probably going to take his $5 that he sent us back. Alvin Kamara. I think Alvin Kamara with Andy Dalton is going to have a really, really good game, bordering huge. The problem with Kamara is not really Kamara, it's Winston. Winston doesn't throw the ball to his running backs. Andy Dalton does. Andy Dalton will dump it off. Andy Dalton will check it down to him. And I think you're going to see Kamara. Remember, this is the London game. We talk about this for years, Rod. What do they like to see? Points.
Bears, man.
Points. Right? They're so used to soccer where they maybe score once every 2 games. We want to show them a game that's high flying, tons of points. A little more lenient. Let's get these teams moving the ball. Let's let them play a little. Let's call some penalties so they get closer to the end zone. I think if you got anybody that you're wavering with in the Vikings or the Saints, that should be the tipping. You'd be like, all right, the London game. Let me start off my day right. Let me make my coffee a little tastier. Let me make my eggs a little fluffier. Get your players in on this one. And don't forget about the special, which I dipped into, Rob. It's a prayer. It's a hallelujah. Taysom Hill as your tight end. If you are dying at tight end, you know,
I took a shot.
I was dying. I think I've scored 3 points from my tight end in 3 games total in one league because I was rolling with Komet. Or maybe he had like 6. But anyways, last week, 5. Zeros the week before. I'm 3-0. Taysom Hill, put him in because he didn't play last week. He's a week healthier. They're going to swap out Dalton every once and then. He's going to run the ball. He's going to catch some passes. Why not? And don't forget about Juwan Johnson and Adam Troutman. They're running about a 50-50 split between the two now. There's just tons of players in this game. If you are dying, I want somebody in this game out of all the games. This is like the Sunday morning magic.
Exciting stuff, man. I love football when it's all day long.
Literally.
All right, next one here. Cleveland Browns at the Atlanta Falcons. Cleveland's kind of surprising to a certain degree. Their run game is awesome. Brissett's actually playing pretty well. Their defense is pretty much keeping up to what we thought they could be. Myles Garrett out. Not sure how much that makes of a difference. But who are we starting from the Cleveland side? Atlanta's kind of that other team that is kind of surprising too. Their players play well from a fantasy perspective. I'm debating right now between Drake London, Olave, and Juju Smith-Schuster. I know you don't like Juju. I'm looking for some Sunday night magic. But could Drake London be somebody that you're starting against this Cleveland Browns defense who were halfway decent?
Yeah, they're really good. They're really, really good against the run. Against the pass, they haven't been too great. If you go back and look, they've been susceptible. The problem is, and I mean, they have been. Last week especially, Atlanta opened it up. But I was going to say the problem is Atlanta isn't throwing as much as they could or we would hope. But they looked to get Pitts involved last week. You know, if it was between London and Olave, it's so close, and I just said the tipping would be the London game. And I think I would still stick with Olave. And the reason being, I think the Browns are going to look to run. And it's going to grind the clock. And I don't see that being Minnesota's strategy. So I think Olave will have more plays on the field than London will have. It's super close. I want both in my lineup. I want Pitts in my lineup. I'm a little worried about Patterson in this one, but they could split them out wide. I would not play Algier against this Cleveland Brown defense. Keep riding the Cooper train. I don't think he gets 101 yards and a touchdown again like he has 2 weeks in a row. Exactly 101 yards 2 weeks in a row and a touchdown. But I'd play him. Peoples-Jones, it's a great matchup. But if you're that desperate, I'd rather go with a KJ Osborne, like I mentioned before. I'd rather go with a Josh Reynolds who's an honorable mention for a guesstimator this week. We'll get to his game in a little bit. I'd probably go with Quez Watkins, who's the other honorable mention over Peoples-Jones this week. Just because I think Cleveland's going to look to run as much as they possibly can. So if it's not Cooper, if it's not Njoku because you need a tight end or the two running backs, I'd probably stay away. Pitts, London, that's about it.
All right, let's go on to the next one here. Buffalo Bills at the Baltimore Ravens. This is supposed to be a rainy affair, according to the weather. They said it was supposed to rain all day in New York, too, for today. Didn't happen, so who the hell knows? But anyways, Buffalo coming off of a tough loss last week to Miami. It seems like they're healthy now, though. Gabe Davis had a lot of drops that were definitely catchable balls.
Yeah.
I guess my main question for the Buffalo side, Devin Singletary is getting the load of the share. Is he trustable against this Baltimore Ravens defense that on paper should be amazing? They really stepped it up in the second half last week, but they kind of have been giving up a lot of points. I think you even mentioned that as well. On the flip side, Baltimore Ravens, is this just a startable game for everybody? The fact that Buffalo Bills defense is still banged up. They've gotten a little healthier, but I mean, you saw what happened last week. Can a Duvernay, could a Bateman, even a Dobbins be in play this week?
Dobbins looked really good last week. He didn't show up in the stat sheet in fantasy purposes, but he looked really good from what I saw, rewatching clips of the game or anything that happened to pop up on Red Zone. He looked really good to me, but Justice Hill, who I mentioned, looked great. I honestly think that Dobbins is going to be their 1-2, and Justice Hill is going to be their third down back. And I think that they'll kind of keep it that way. And when Gus Edwards comes back, he'll kind of be their short yardage, their goal line guy. So it's kind of a mess. I was always stay away from Baltimore and stay away from Miami. I would play the Baltimore guys before I played the Miami guys, without a doubt. But against the Bills, I really don't want any part of it. It kind of feels like, even though Dobbins looked good, they're still kind of holding them back a little. Don't want to give them too much. And against the Bills, I just don't want to do it, especially in the rain, coming back on an injury. If that field gets soggy, you slip. I mean, Elijah Mitchell, same sort of thing, right? If it's a soggy, wet field, you shouldn't be putting these guys out there that have had these lower body injuries. So you put Dobbins in your lineup, you run the risk of having them for half a quarter and never again. So I would just stay away from them. Andrews, watch another fantasy show if you need somebody to talk about Mark Andrews, because that's not what we do here. Bateman, I'm rolling with him in the leagues. I've been rolling with him. Been disappointing, but they're going to need him, I think. Lamar running. Hopefully he can get through this wet field okay. I do think Baltimore wins this game. I think the Bills lose 2 in a row. I think Lamar has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, because when you talk about the 2018 class, Josh Allen catapulted himself way above Darnold for obvious reasons, way above Baker now for obvious reasons. And it's Allen is the best in the league, and Lamar's just sitting there like, what? I won the MVP before. Like, what are you talking about? Have you seen me play? So he's got a little bit of chip on his shoulder. I think that the Ravens win this one. But there's a player on this team that I was not too high on because I thought it would be somebody else. But my mind has changed. And this is what you have to do to be successful. Darko, I mentioned him again, asked the question about heart, mind, or gut or whatever. You can never play fantasy with your heart. You can never do that. My heart would be like, no, you stay the course, you stay strong. And that's how people would be. They want to be proud. They want to show their pride. I thought Crowder would be the number 3. McKenzie looks amazing to me. And I know he was good at the end of the year last year when they had nothing else really. And it was him, and then Davis came up, and then Diggs finally got healthy again. But McKenzie looks absolutely ridiculous to me. And he's somebody I would want in this game. I think if I'm the Ravens, I'm looking to take out Diggs until I get close to the red zone. And then I'm looking to take out Davis. And I think McKenzie is going to sneak by and have a really, really good game in this one. So he's like the ultimate. Everybody on my team is hurt. I have to play someone because most other weeks, but the Baltimore secondary in the rain, what do we always say about the rain? It helps the offensive receivers. So he's somebody I'd really be looking to play. If you're worried about Davis or Diggs, don't be play him. Knox, I did not like going into the season. I liked him last year going into the season, not this season. He's underwhelmed. I would go Taysom Hill over him. I'd go Bellinger over him.
I like Bellinger, man. I don't know why I like that kid so much, and I'm not a Giants fan at all, but he looks good, man. He looks good. All right, let's go on to the next one here. Washington Commanders at the Dallas Cowboys. Commanders an underwhelming team, man. I mean, Carson Wentz, we talked about in the beginning. He kind of gave some false hope. He just doesn't look good. Do we see a quarterback change eventually happening if this offense keeps on sputtering the way it is? Am I nervous playing my Scary Terry? I know you're saying Dotson only gets a few, but he was making some bigger plays. Your Antonio Gibsons, Logan Thomas. Who are you playing from that side? Dallas looked okay against the Giants last week. The run game is what kind of kept them into it, and then CD could have had a bigger game, but obviously we saw what he did at the end of the game. Anybody else we should be paying attention to? Is Gallup finally maybe worth a start?
I think Logan Thomas bounces back in this one. Cowboys usually aren't good against the tight end. I think Antonio Gibson has a pretty good game. I mean, we don't like to look back and be like, oh, well, last week Saquon Barkley killed the Cowboys. Well, Saquon Barkley did kill the Cowboys. And I feel like Gibson, I feel like they can exploit the same type of things that the Giants did with Saquon. Gibson probably not as talented as Saquon. I mean, he's otherworldly. But still, I like Gibson to bounce back. So if you went with him last week and you were disappointed, he did get his one touchdown late, but I think he has a much better game this one. And this could be, if the miracles occur, the last time that he is the full-fledged starter, because Brian Robinson would be back in week 5, like everybody said. I think maybe week 6, 7, or 8 is more likely, but we shall see. So Gibson has to feel that right behind him. Cowboys, big game. Carson Wentz, he's an issue for sure. I would love Sam Howell to get in there and be the quarterback. He looked great in the preseason. We're waiting for any rookie to take over. I think Pickett will be soon. I think Willis be soon. I think Howell should be soon. And I kind of get a feeling Ritter in Atlanta might be soon because Mariota really hasn't looked very good. So I'm going to say by like week 8, 9, 10, we got at least 2 of them that are starting, if not sooner. So we will get that young blood of quarterbacks. And, man, we need it, right? Because we've got guys like Wentz putzing around, Matt Ryan putzing around, my boy A-Rod putzing around, Brady putzing around. Get out of here. Sit down, old man. That's what I say. And I love Pollard in this one. It's tough to run against Washington. They're going to need to dump it off. I'm not taking a chance on Gallup. I think Noah Brown has looked so good that if it's not CD, I think it's Noah Brown. I don't think they overdo it with Gallup. As far as the Washington wide receivers, I mean, I'm fine with McLaurin if you have to start Dotson, especially this week with all the injuries. Samuel could, I mean, it was last week the beginning of the Samuel decline. We'll see. If you're starting,
my love and hate affair with Samuel,
because this, we'll see. Because if he has another dud this week, right, dud-ish. I mean, he was good. He was second in team in receptions, I think, but it wasn't the same as it was the first 2 weeks. So if he declines even more, then we got to start thinking, okay, maybe now he's not the wide receiver 1, 2 we thought he was, or you thought he was. But I'd use him because this one probably has another chance to be a high-scoring game. Division game, they know each other well, can easily get into the upper 20s, low 30s.
All right, let's go on to the next one here. Seattle Seahawks at the Detroit Lions. I've been telling everybody to pick up the Lions defense. I have no clue why. I think I'm like you were a closet Browns fan. I'm a closet Detroit fan. I like what they have together, but that offense now is in dire need. I mean, we're at a point that Swift's out, St. Brown's out, so it makes me a little worried now. Are they going to be able to actually move the ball for the defense to play well, or if they're going to be on the field too much? Talk about the Detroit side. Seattle looked a little better. They lost to Atlanta, but you mentioned DK coming back. Penny kind of got back on track a little bit, still kind of showed that he was number one. Disley getting a lot of love, it seems like, too. Is he worth a tight end start?
It's so ridiculous with Noah Fant there that Will Disley is still allowed to do anything. Colby Parkinson, the same exact situation. I don't want any part of it. Either of the three. Rashad Penny, throw him out there, especially against the Lions. You know, you want to play their defense, that's fine. They look good in comparison to the Lions of old. I will give them that much. But every game they play, every single one, even the one that they won, they should be 3-0. They gave away 2 of those games late. And that's a sign of a bad defense for me. Now, you happen to be playing against what I think is probably the worst team in football. And that's mostly because of their quarterback, Gino. I'm sorry. It just is. He had one good half of football this year, one good quarter of football last year when he came into the game late. When Russell Wilson got hurt, he looked amazing. And he was terrible after that. I said it after this week. I said he's going to be terrible. He's been terrible after week 1. But I like DK. He figured out how to get DK involved, so I like him this week against Detroit because I don't think the Lions – I mean, there are some surprising defenses. The Jaguars are one of them.
Yeah.
But if you said who's better, the Jaguars or the Lions, I'll say the Jaguars are light years beyond the Lions. So the Lions are still middle of the road defense. If you needed to stream somebody, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but I think Seattle with Penny, with DK, with Lockett, with the trio of tight ends, which I would not use any, they can still move the ball. Detroit, on the other hand, they've looked great. They got offensive weapons galore. Problem is the top 3 are out this week. Amon-Ra, everybody's favorite new wide receiver, Swift, and now DJ Chark, all out. So the only one that's left, really, is Josh Reynolds, who was our honorable mention for a guesstimator. It was too easy. But you definitely want to use him because he's golf's boy. Ever since they signed him last year, you say, oh, this is going to be a connection. And he loves them. He throws them. He does pretty well. Who else do they – what do they have? Khalif Raymond still? Yeah, is that who they got?
Mr. Sponge for hands.
Well, yeah, they got Sponge for hands. He's going to be needed this week. They haven't really used him much. They're going to rely on Jamal Williams, and I alluded to this when I was talking about the Vikings game. Everybody went out and spent a lot of money on Madison. Wasted. Unless you're just going to hold them. Now, at this point, you have no choice to hold Madison and hope Cook gets hurt again or trade him. And shame on you for wishing pain upon somebody else, first of all. Everybody spent a lot of money on Jamal, and rightly so. Swift got hurt, had a huge game. Right? But that was last week. And they got somebody else in town who is one of 2 week 4 guesstimators.
And who was that?
Senor Craig Reynolds. This team, the coaching staff loves this kid. It's his 4th year. He was drafted by Washington. They had too many backs. Detroit signed him. He played last year towards the end of the year. I think he had a 90-yard game or maybe a touchdown or something towards the end of the season, like week 13 or something like that, or 15. Was in the fantasy playoffs maybe. Hard-nosed runner. Got a little speed. He could catch the ball. If you are thinking, and you picked him up, and you are thinking Jamal Williams is just going to run and get 100% of these snaps and just murder it this week against the worst defense in football, the Seattle Seahawks, you're half correct. Because I expect close to a 50-50 split between these two. I think Craig Reynolds has a game. I think it's very possible that Craig Reynolds outscores Jamal Williams this week in fantasy. Because if they get close, I think they give it to Craig Reynolds. And they're going to use Craig Reynolds between the 20s, not just inside the 20. They did it last year when Jamal was hurt and Swift was hurt. They had to rely on him. They have Justin Jackson. Now, if Justin Jackson gets called up and activated tomorrow, Justin Jackson could be the third down back. And that's just going to complicate things even more because he's a great pass catcher. But I wouldn't play Justin Jackson. But if you are dying for whatever reason, thank the Lord, we don't have many running back injuries. But if you need something, remember, guesstimator is not so much of somebody you want to take to play this week. But because I think DeAndre Swift's injury is going to take him out past the bye, they got a week 6 bye. So I think the soonest he'll be back is 7. So that means if worse comes to worse, somebody gets injured on our team, you might be able to use Craig Reynolds next week, week 5, and then never again until Swift gets hurt again, which he will, because he does every year, 2 or 3 times. Comes back for a game, gets hurt, he's out 2 games. Comes back for 2 games, gets hurt, he's out a game. Craig Reynolds is somebody you want to grab before he has a good game tomorrow, and you put him on your bench. And if I'm wrong and he doesn't, you cut him. If I'm right and he does, you have him before anybody else does. Because when Tuesday rolls around, if Craig Reynolds outscores Jamal Williams like I think he will, everybody's going to be going after him. That's why he's this week's first guesstimator.
I like it, man. Let's see what happens. All right, on to the next one here. The Los Angeles Chargers at the Houston Texans. Chargers got beat up on last week, man. Jaguars had their number. We saw that Herbert was hurt. Keenan Allen's out. Mike Williams, obviously the main go-to guy. But who are we starting from this Chargers team? You were high on Eckler. Is it Eckler taking a chance against now a Houston defense that isn't the greatest? On the flip side, Dameon Pierce looked great. He had his first touchdown. You had called him being somebody that you have to play last week. Is he somebody again that you're looking to play this week against a Chargers defense that just lost Joey Bosa? And could he run on them? And then any wide receiver starts?
Eckler's an absolute smash this week. This is the week. I thought it might be last week. This is the week. He's back. If you have any reservations or doubts, he's pissing you off, keep him in. This is the one. This is the one. It's Eckler time for sure. 100%. Zero doubts. He will get it done. Mike Williams disappointed last week without Keenan Allen. It's really weird. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I could look back and see, but I feel like when Keenan Allen's not there, like, he either balls out or absolutely disappears. I don't think Houston has what it takes to make Mike Williams disappear. So if you're a little bit disappointed with last week's one catch, which I think was a touchdown, just keep him in. Keep going. Josh Palmer, probably going to have a huge game in this one. Keep going with Gerald Everett, not a problem. The week started, and I saw this matchup, and I had Dameon Pierce in 2 lineups, 2 leagues. I owned him, and I took him out. No, thank you. I don't want this. No, thank you. As the week started to go on, I'm starting to feel like, you know what? Chargers defense a little banged up. Defensive line a little banged up. I would be okay if you had to use him. The problem now is Davis Mills has not looked good. He has not looked good. Looked really good week 1. I was like, oh, he's the best one in last year's draft class. Nope. Trevor Lawrence is by far at this point. So I like Cooks. I'm not shying away from Cooks. Down week last week. Nico Collins, he still got to wait. I honestly think my preseason tight end superhero powerhouse Brevin Jordan, I honestly think him getting hurt Davis Mills.
I can see that.
Because it's just Jordan Hicks or whatever and Pharaoh Brown. I don't know. Is that right? Jordan Hicks? He's the one? Yeah. I think
I
those
believe
are
it is. Yeah, I know Pharaoh Brown definitely. I'm looking now for
like
the other.
they're like 90-year-old crotchety. I don't even know. Like
Yeah,
I'm a,
no, Jordan Akins.
Jordan Akins. That's right, Jordan Akins. Yeah. So I no. So I feel like that hurt him. So that's my only issue here because I do think the Chargers are going to be able to move the ball really easily. That's still why I'm sort of leaning towards sitting Pierce is because I think this game could get out of control. I think the Chargers, Herbert, a little more healthy. Remember, last week I had heard news of him. He was having trouble sleeping because his ribs hurt so bad. Well, now he's had that. Now he's used to it, right? Now he's lived with it for a week. They're not only a week more healed, but he's a week more used to dealing with the injured ribs, how to not move a certain way, how to sleep at night, and a little more prepared to deal with any extra pain he absolves. So, and because I think Eckler's going to go nuts and Williams will be fine, Palmer's going to go off, this Texans defense can't handle their offense. So, no matter how much the Chargers defense is hurt, Texans are going to be playing catch up. So, that's why I shy away a little bit from Pierce this week. Um, and I play Cooks if I have to. Other than that, I just think the Chargers blow them out.
All right. Let's go on to the next one here. Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts got lucky last week. They beat on Kansas City. I don't know. That was such a weird game to watch, to be honest with you. Matt Ryan is obviously not nowhere close. He has a good offensive line. He just looks like he's stuck in mud. How does that affect everybody else around him? It doesn't seem like it looks like he's stuck in. I was saying between him and Joe Flacco, it's like concrete that's out there and they can't freaking move. It's unreal. But again, that affects Pittman. That affects Taylor. That affects a lot of guys. Are we comfortable starting our Colts? On the flip side, you called Derrick Henry. You said he was going to have a good game. I'm actually thinking this could be a Burks game. He's kind of shown a little bit. I know you're kind of down on him from here and there, but the target share is there.
Yeah.
If the target share doesn't continue to be there, could you see Malik Willis? Because, again, they only won the game last week, but it wasn't very convincing.
Yeah, I think Phillips is back this week, if I'm not mistaken, or he's at least questionable. I don't think he's been out. I think that will help. I think it'll help Burks. I think it'll help Woods. I think it might even help Hooper, if Hooper's even going to play. I think he might even be questionable. But I do think that their passing game gets some help in this. Shaquille Leonard is still out for the Colts. So their defense just isn't what it was. I'm fine with Pittman. I'm not worried about him. Pierce showed last week he's the real deal, like we thought in the preseason. Taylor, I'm okay with. They might need Naheem Hines a little bit more than they have in the past in this one. And you know what? Last week, I said in the pregame or the recorded shows, like I kind of get a feeling that the Colts could beat Kansas City. And if you watched like the first two drives, like first drive for each team, you're like, yeah, the Colts are going to win this one. Like you could kind of see it on the field. It was almost like Kansas City like wasn't into the game early on, and you were like, the Colts are going to win this. And they had plenty of time to get into the game and to overcome, but they just never could. And this is another one. I think the Colts are going to win this one. I think the Colts, being at home, division game, are going to beat another division winner from last season. They're going to sneak this one out somehow, some way. But I don't think that I'd be shying away from any of the names in this one.
All right.
Woods is somebody that like keeps doing things, but for whatever reason, I can't get on his train. I don't know what it is.
I think it bothers me that he's the number 2 for some reason. I don't know why. I don't like that number.
And the number.
Oh, no, meaning his jersey number is actually the number 2, which really bothers me for some reason. I don't know why.
It could be. Could be.
All right, let's go on to the next game here. Chicago Bears.
How many 1 o'clocks? How many games do we have left?
There's 9 1 o'clock games.
Oh, I got it. All right, we'll make this one quick.
All right, Chicago Bears and New York Giants. Montgomery's out. Everybody picking up Khalil Herbert. That's, I believe, where the money should have been spent. Fields not looking the greatest. Who can we start from the Bears? Giants side, everybody's banged up from a wide receiver standpoint. Galladay, does he make it onto the field, or are we going with the Richie James, the Sills, or one of those guys?
Yeah, we like Bellinger.
I do like Bellinger.
They got no wide receivers. Like, this team went from having Sharp, and for some reason people still considered Kenny Galladay a wide receiver, but Kenny Galladay, not me. Tony, Wandale,
Yeah.
to none of them.
Nobody.
Sills, Richie James, Bellinger, and the boys. Right? And somehow, because Trey Lance decided to get hurt, I didn't want to play Tua because I felt like he would get hurt. I'm starting Daniel Jones.
What? Danny died.
With nobody to throw to.
It's going to be more like Danny Pennies.
And the worst part about it is that they're playing the Bears, who you can move the ball on, but when they have the ball, it's tick, 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 because all they want to do is run the damn ball. It's ridiculous. You spent draft capital on Justin Fields. He showed a little bit of promise. You won't even let him throw the ball because you don't trust him to do so. Let him develop. Like, what are you doing? You're not winning a Super Bowl. The Bears are not winning a Super Bowl this year. No way, no how. So winning and losing games should not even really matter. If you lose a game because Justin Fields doesn't play great throwing the ball, oh, well, he got some burn. He learned. He got some practice. He's developing. They're not winning a Super Bowl. And they're not the only team that's like this. But, it's kind of like Pittsburgh. I like Trubisky. I think Trubisky's better than most people think he is. But it's time to go to Pickett. Because Pittsburgh, you are not winning the Super Bowl. You're not even close. You've got some amazing skill players, but I'm sorry, Braden. You're not winning the Super Bowl this year. Not with Mitchell Trubisky. Not at all. Put Pickett out there. Let him develop. Because what's going to happen is these guys aren't going to develop. And then maybe if you do let them develop, maybe you could win the Super Bowl next year or be a contender. The Bears got enough pieces to maybe be a contender. Pittsburgh certainly has enough pieces to maybe be a contender. But they're playing these games with their quarterbacks. It's absolutely ridiculous. So it hurts the Giants. It's going to hurt me having to start Daniel Jones because my quarterbacks keep getting hurt. Speaking of which, what was it? I saw this somewhere. PSA, sports cards. PSA, they grade sports cards. They give you a grade, tell you conditions, and anybody does do sports cards. Anyways, they started bulk submissions, right? And they had $22 a piece. It was this big thing. And they had a poster child when they opened it up. The first poster child, they put the first card that they showed to say, hey, we're opening bulk submission, $22, Trey Lance. He got hurt. The next week, who did they put on?
Justin Fields?
Tua.
Oh, geez.
It's the new Madden curse.
Oh, no.
They put Tua's card up there. It said $22 bulk submissions to us. And then he got hurt. So I will let you know whoever they put up next week, because whoever that is, you want to trade him. It's the Madden curse. So anyways, the Giants, Barkley, go ahead. The Bears. Mooney and Kmet should be doing something. Economia St. Brown should not be the only one making noise for the Bears. He's not, because the running backs are, because that's all they do is they run. As Rob so perfectly said, tons of money was spent on Khalil Herbert. That's exactly where all the money should have been going. If it was between Madison, Williams, and Khalil Herbert definitely was where he should have spent the money, because I do think, A, that Montgomery is going to be out longer and for a longer straight period than Cook, obviously, because he's playing, and Swift, because Swift will be back, and then he'll get out again, back and forth. I think Montgomery's injury is really bad. But Khalil Herbert and Jamal Williams are owned in pretty much every league I'm in. Anyways, they were owned even before this. But Khalil Herbert, like, We love him. He's great. I thought he would even be the starter over Montgomery to begin the year, but Montgomery got on such a roll because Montgomery needs 20 touches a game to get rolling. And that's what they were giving it to him. So if you give him the 20, he's going to get rolling. So he got rolling, they kept him. But now it's Khalil Herbert. But the problem is that this game has your second week 4 guesstimator.
Part 2.
As I said in the intro, everybody spent money on Madison. You were forgetting about or not noticing Kane Nwangwu, who I've been talking about since the preseason. You're still not going to get to see him, unfortunately. And then I mentioned in the Detroit game, everybody's spending on Jamal Williams because of his game last week, but you forgot to realize that Craig Reynolds is sitting there. Everybody went out and spent Khalil Herbert, who was the best of the 3, but nobody realizes who their third string is. The Chicago Bears used to have a guy, and I can't think of his name. Oh, it just popped in my head. I always wanted to keep saying Matt Forte, but it wasn't Matt Forte. It was Tariq Cohen. They drafted a player this past year, and he is this week 4 guesstimator part 2. Tristan Ebner. He is your Tariq Cohen redo. That means brought back to life. Oh, so French. Tristan Ebner is a little speedy monster man. And they will use him to do the run game / pass game type of scenario. They don't want Fields throwing the ball. They don't want to run Herbert too much. They will if they have to. They did last week. But Tristan Ebner is going to get the checkdowns. He's a speedy little monster. He's like a tiny little meatball fast man. If you know who Tariq Cohen is, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Tristan Ebner is a name that nobody knows except ABG. And that's why you're here. And we're giving it to you. So again, we tell you the guesstimators if this is your first time watching us, because you have to know these guys before everybody else. And this week, tomorrow, you will see Tristan Ebner on the field. If he sucks, you dump him. If he does what I think he's going to do, you have him and nobody else does. He's your week 4 guesstimator, number 2.
Inside scoop from outside the box. I love it. All right. 2 more 1 o'clock games. Then we'll get to your questions, guys. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Philadelphia Eagles. Another rainy game situation. I actually didn't mention the other game as well. It's raining, but they run the ball in the rain. The Jaguars looked fantastic last week against the Chargers. You said it. Lawrence is looking like the number 1 quarterback out of all those quarterbacks. Zach Wilson's coming back, but that's the next game. Anyways, Kirk is the man. Who else? I feel like this could be an ETN game because they may be playing catch up the same way that Chargers were playing catch up against them last week. Could this be a James Robinson and ETN game? What do you think in there? And then the Eagles just keep on rolling. Miles Sanders seems to be getting the love. Boston Scott out this time. So does that mean more Miles Sanders, or can we start looking at one of these other backs as possibly if you need him for a start? And then anybody else? You think you mentioned Quez Watkins before as an honorable mention. Why do you think of that?
Yeah, just to show you that I don't play favorites and just stick to whatever I say and hope for my pride. Zay Jones is good to go, right?
Seems that way.
Is he good?
Because I think he had a couple limited practices, if I'm not mistaken.
Because I like Zay Jones in this game. Because I think the Eagles do what they can to stop Christian Kirk. This is a revenge game of sorts. You got Doug Peterson, head coach of the Jaguars. He's coached the Eagles, brought them to the Super Bowl, I believe. I think Zay Jones for the Jags is going to have a bit of a game. You might even have a renaissance with the other Jones. Marvin, is he playing?
Zay Jones is on the favorable side of question mark here, but
because I think the Eagles are going to do what they can to shut down Mr. Kirk. And exactly like Rob said, I like ETN. We've been waiting for it. They're going to need them. I think the Jaguars defense, and they've always been kind of good. The problem was the offense was terrible for the most part. But like you think about last year, they beat Buffalo, right? In a game that nobody saw that coming type of thing. And it was the defense that absolutely, so their defense has always been good. So now it's just the offense making the defense look even better. But I do think Philadelphia, because they have the front runner for MVP and Jalen Hurts right now, and all things are clicking with their running backs, their wide receivers, tight end. They'll be able to score, so I do think the Jaguars are going to have to keep up just a little bit. I think the home field advantage will help that as well. So you will see ETN. I love ETN as a play this week. We'll see if Evan Ingram can finally get 2 feet in and score a touchdown. He's getting some red zone targets. He must have size 18 shoe. He's like Shaquille O'Neal out there because he just can't get those feet in bounds. So Evan Ingram is somebody to look at if you're in a tight end pinch for sure, because I do think they look to lock down Kirk. So if you are starting Kirk, which you should be starting Kirk, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous that this could be his worst week of the season, but I don't think you should bench him. The corners are good for the Eagles. They'll look to shut him down. The corners are good for the Jags. Who will they look to shut down? Will it be A.J. Brown? Or will it be Devonta Smith? Because A.J. Brown had an amazing week 1. Devonta's been amazing the past 2 weeks. I tell you who it's not going to be. My honorable mention, Quez Watkins. Came through with his 1 deep ball. That's what he's good. He's the token deep ball guy. I think Quez Watkins does it again. Another deep ball, speed, route, throw it in the end zone, catch it. Quez Watkins, like if you need a DFS dart, he's about as good as it gets this week because I think there's going to be points on both sides, solid defenses, solid offensive, and I like Quez Watkins. And you can't go away from Miles Sanders right now. He's just getting too much of a snap control. Trey Sermon will be active. Let's see how they use him. No Boston Scott, that helps. And Goddard, of course. You got to use him.
All right, let's go on to the final 1 o'clock game here. My New York Jets at the Pittsburgh Steelers. As I mentioned, Zach Wilson's coming back. I made a trade this week. I traded Elijah Moore for Bateman. I have Lamar Jackson. I'm trying to get the double BB banger. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I think this guy got me. And I think he got me because Zach Wilson coming back changes his perspective of how this offense is going to run. We were high on Garrett Wilson. Flacco is throwing the ball everywhere. But Zach Wilson's a different quarterback. Is Elijah Moore finally going to show up? And does Garrett Wilson take a step back? Is Uzuma going to be the tight end? And Conklin takes a step back? Is Michael Carter going to get the love now? And Brees going to step back? My Jets have a lot of offensive ability, it seems like. Zach Wilson makes a huge difference. On the flip side, you're talking about Trubisky's not the guy. Pickett should be in there. But they're obviously not looking that way. Warren getting a lot more love as well compared to, Harris is still the number 1, but Warren getting some love. Should I be concerned as a Najee owner with Warren kind of trailing up? And who am I starting from the wide receivers?
Yeah, Rob, Elijah Moore is going to have the best game out of all the Jets this week. By far. By far. He's Zach Wilson's boy.
I know. I didn't think of it. I'm just like, what did I do?
that's Elijah Moore is Zach Wilson's boy. It's like, it's like Favre to Devontae. It's granted they didn't have Garrett Wilson last year, but they had everybody else for the most part. Wilson's going to help get more open as well because they're going to look to Wilson more because he's been better. Moore is going to have a hell of a game. It's Zach Wilson's boy. He is. If you have Elijah Moore sitting on your bench or he's on waiver wire for whatever reason, you have to play him this week. This is the week. Pittsburgh defense is not even a shell of itself without TJ Watt. You have to. You just have to. Zach Wilson coming back. They're going to look to check down quite often. So I think Brees actually has a really good game. So if you're Brees Hall owner, you had sort of mentioned it. He liked Carter, but they kind of went with the Carter-Coleman sort of thing last year. So it's like I think it's going to be a little the same. Coleman couldn't really stay healthy. Um, I think Hall will be fine. I think they'll stick with the around 50-50, but Hall's ascending. Hall's going to take that job, and he's going to be in the 70% seat within about 3-4 weeks, I think. I like Michael Carter. Rob, you know that. Big fan of Michael Carter, even last year before the season started. But Brees Hall is just, he's a whole nother level. He's a tier above. He's just not there NFL wise, but he will be, I think, in about 3 weeks. But Elijah Moore's the one, but you're not benching Wilson without a doubt. You could bench Corey Davis. I don't want to play the Ozoma Conklin. Ozoma got hurt again, didn't he? Isn't that why Conklin finally started getting burned?
Yeah. It seems like Ozuma, I think, practiced again.
Right. So
yeah,
I don't want to be any part of that. There's too many other ancillary tight ends out there that we could throw in there. Ballinger is one name we keep throwing out there. I would rather go him. I would rather put in the cheat code with Taysom Hill like I'm doing. Than ride the Jets tight ends. And for the Steelers, the Najee Warren question, the only way Warren becomes a thing, I think, is if Najee gets hurt, which his foot's hurt. He's just playing on it. But if Warren didn't fumble last week, I think I'd be worried. But Tomlin don't like that.
He doesn't.
And that fumble, it knocked him down a couple pegs. And I kind of like Claypool in this one. We're sort of waiting for his big one. Pickens, okay. If you're stretching, dude is such a diva. He's kind of rubbing me the wrong way early on. I'd love to see an interview with him and just see how he speaks and like does he speak in like the third person or whatever, like George is out there making plays. Why aren't they throwing to George? Like, crap like
he can make it Pickens this way.
He just, with his antics on the sideline, just sort of rubbed me the wrong way last week. But, he's athletic is all hell and amazing pass catcher, obviously. And Deontay and Fryer moves. So this game with TJ Watt out is two pretty good offenses and two defenses. So get your players in on all of them, but I think Elijah Moore takes the cake.
All right, let's jump into questions from the group. I actually may just go through all questions because we actually have quite a couple viewers here and a couple viewers there from the different places. So,
all right,
let's go.
Let me just recap if you're still here watching. We don't normally do the games this season anymore live while we're taking the questions. We switched it this year. We do recorded Saturday shows so that we can post. You can watch me at your leisure. And then we come on Sunday mornings. But because of the London game, we said we have to do it all tonight. So that's why you just sit through 1 hour so far of us talking about the games. But now we're going to turn it to you before we go to the 4 o'clocks.
All right. Sean, what's up there, buddy? Dawn with the question. Flying out to Vegas today, so I likely won't be able to watch. Don't worry. You can always watch it afterwards. Submitting my lineup to see if there's any changes. I'm rolling at 0-3. Good Lord, something's got to go right eventually. Let me find the continuation for that. Her starters, Deontay, Scary Terry, Mixon, who's already played, Kamara, Conklin, and Javonta. Her bench, Hunt, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, and Rashad Penny.
Oh, well, we kind of answered that. See, I would be tempted to put Moore over Deontay. I just don't know if I could do it. I know I just said Moore is going to be the best one out of them, but I just want that consistency. The 100% sure that Deontay is going to be the best wide receiver for Pittsburgh. And because you're 0-3, you don't need to shoot for the stars. I think you just need some consistency and something. I'm looking at this team, and I'm saying you're 0-3, and the reason that you're 0-3 is probably you played some really good teams who blew up. Couple of your guys down, but I think you're going to be all right this week. I think Kamara has a good week. I like Javonte. We'll talk about his game later. Mixon did okay. Could have done better. Started off hot. I think Scary Terry is a good one. I'm just going to go with Deontay. I'm going to keep it exactly as it is. I would love for you to have a different tight end, Dawn. I'm not sure if you're watching or can watch, but another tight end because I'm not getting in the Conklin Uzoma debacle again.
All right, Josh with the question here. Pick 2, Henry, Kamara, Herbert, Stevenson.
I'm just going to go with the first two. I think Herbert and Kamara is close, but I'm going to ride the Henry wave. I like all 4 of these guys this week, Josh. I don't think that you will go wrong using either of them. But Stevenson has Harris. Herbert is going to get 70+%, but I just feel like Abner is going to steal some thunder from him. I don't think they're going to burn him out. Burning out Montgomery is a different story. I'm going to go with Kamara and Henry.
All right, next one here. Pick 1, Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, or DJ Moore.
Evans coming back
Sunday night.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Evans. Sunday night magic, high flying game against Mahomes. My son's coming downstairs. Yes, Noah, what do you need?
Grown-up TV is on.
Oh, grown-up TV's on. Okay, I'll be up there in 1 minute to change it.
I'll go with Evans as well. I just think he'll have a better game than the other two. Do you want to go and do that real quick?
Let's do 2 more.
All right. Matt P has a 4-part question here.
Let's do this one.
All right. With St. Brown and MT ruled out, I picked up Chark, dropped Dortch. Who should I start? All right. Obviously, Chark is out now, too. Team I'm playing against had Tua. Shouldn't have been on the field yesterday, in his opinion. Higgins basically canceled out Tyreek, so I have an 18-point advantage right now.
Okay.
His starters are Burrow, Eckler, Dillon, Hill, Chark, Kelsey, Deontay. His bench is Etienne, Elijah Moore, Henderson, Algier, and Mr. Dubs. To add on to that question, Chark is out, so he sent over his waivers. Not sure if it's even needed.
You're putting in Elijah Moore. And that's it. Done.
Okay. Excellent. All right.
And I mean, I would even consider Etienne over Dillon, but I keep Dillon. I'm putting in Elijah Moore over Chark. That's it.
All right. Michael C. with the question. Same question I asked on Tuesday night. Need 1 wide receiver, 1 flex between Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, Chris Olave, and Jeff Wilson Jr. I currently have Cooper and Olave in those spots. But does it make a difference with Dalton starting over Hurt?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Cooper and Olave is fine. Brandon Cooks is really close. I probably just stick with it. You've gone this far.
All right. Do you have to jump out?
Yeah, I'll be back. Count to 43.
All right. 1, 2, 3. No, I'm just joking, guys. Always remember to like, comment, share. We really appreciate everybody. Make sure you guys are subscribing on YouTube, looking for us on Twitter, looking for us on Instagram, looking for us on Patreon. We definitely appreciate you all and joining in. I like to see a lot of YouTubers, guys. Hey, we're going to get to your questions. Don't worry about that. Always look for our hashtags as well. Bear with me 1 sec while I look for them. It's answers by guests and then hashtag ABGFF. One thing that we did change to kind of make things a little easier for everybody to look at is on our YouTube, we actually listed fantasy football now, answers by guests. It helps with some of the actual viewing and being able to find us a little easier on YouTube.
How many seconds?
I lost count. I lost count at 10, and then I jumped into hashtags. And now that we look, I even mentioned to them, it says fantasy football answers by guests now on YouTube compared to just answers by guests to make it a little easier for everybody to find us.
Word up. All right.
Go. We're going to go into the Allen segment here.
Okay.
Allen has a question. Damian Pierce, Khalil Herbert, or Jamal Williams. Start 2 of them.
I'm going to go Herbert. Oh, and let's go Herbert and Williams. Just do it. I'm still not there with Pierce. I feel like I just can't. They're not going to be able to run the ball. You might see Burkhead more this week.
Allen with another one here. Juju, Mike Williams, Dubs, Thielen, Cooks, Woods, and Palmer. Start 2.
I'm going to go with Cooks and Mike Williams.
Thielen and Juju are kind of close for me. I'm going to go with guess on both of those. Mike Williams and Cooks. That even though it's the same game, that game could be a little bit higher scoring. I don't know. I just have this feeling about Juju on Sunday night. I think they're going to need him. All right, next one here. Conklin or Kittle?
Kittle.
All right, that was easy. I agree. Allen with another one here. Dortch, Stevenson, Ayuk, Gabe Davis, Allen Robinson, Palmer, Duvernay, 1 wide receiver, and 2 flex.
Gabe Davis in the rain. Let's do it. 2 flex. Stevenson, I think they're going to use him against Green Bay. I just can't trust Allen Robinson anymore. I think Palmer's good.
I'm kind of between Ayuk and Dortch, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Dortch.
Yeah, that's who was on my mind.
Dortch, Gabe, Stevenson.
All right. Sutton, Lockett, McLaurin, Gabe Davis, Zay, or Dortch. Start 2.
Oh, I'm going to go McLaurin and Gabe.
Yeah.
I like Zay, but I'm just going to go a little safer.
Sutton would be somebody that I would be looking at. It's probably Sutton and Terry, but I like what you're saying there.
Actually, let's go back to that. Because you know what? It sounds like he's got Gabe in the one other league. I'm going to go with McLaurin and Sutton. Because I actually think, I didn't want to give away too much, because usually we talk about the games, but I think Russell Wilson's going to have a game.
He has to.
I think he's going to bust out of it and have a game. Vegas defense is just terrible. So I'm going to go Sutton and McLaurin. You're playing Gabe Davis in another league. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Let's go. Because I do think McKenzie is emerging. So McLaurin and Sutton in this one.
All right. Everett or Irv Smith, or should he pick up Tunyon over either one of those guys?
I kind of like the Tunyon scoop. Anybody that's been watching us for the past 3 years knows I'm not a Bobby T fan. I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, but I'm not huge on him. But I did like how involved he was last week on this new look offense of Sans Adams. But I think I'll just roll with Irv. I want to say Everett. Flip a coin on those two. The problem with Everett is you have Mike Williams, Palmer, and I think Eckler's going to have a big game. Then you can say, well, Irv's got Jefferson and Cook and whatever. So it's a coin flip. I like that early game points being scored. Chargers could get up by a ton. They don't have to throw the ball. I'm going Irv Smith slightly over Everett. Leave Tunyon out there.
All right. Next one here. Start Pierce over Eckler, Chubb, Barkley this week.
No, none. None of that. No.
Agree wholeheartedly on that one.
I mean, listen, anybody's watching, like Dameon Pierce, we gave you his name in the preseason before anybody knew who he was, before he was elevated to being number 1. I told you we like Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce blew up on the scene. He went from being behind Marlon Mack, right, to being the man. But I'm not feeling it this week. Felt it last week, not feeling it this week.
Sorry about that. Next one here. Brees, Carter, or Dillon?
I'm just going to go Dillon. I think Green Bay they are just all about just run. And he's yet to have a really huge game. And Brees and Carter, you play Brees, Carter goes off. Carter, Brees goes off. I'm just going to go Dillon and just forget about it. Watch from the sidelines.
I pick up what you're putting down. All right, Alan, another here. Gabe Davis, Allen Robinson, Richie James, start 2.
Richie would be a volume play. He's getting it done. X49er, right? I just can't. Allen Robinson, I can't trust him right now. So I'm going Gabe and Richie.
Richie! Oh, sorry. Wrong movie. Chris R. with a question here. Am I crazy to sit Dalvin Cook for Cordero? I can't ever say Cordero Patterson. There it is.
I don't think it's crazy. I think that the Falcons will have a little more trouble rushing with him like that than usual. If Cook wasn't the slightest bit hurt, I'd be like, yes, you're crazy. But like, let's just say he gets hit wrong. He gets hit hard in the shoulder, and it knocks him out. And Cordarrelle scores, I don't know, let's just say he scores 12 points, and Cook gets knocked out with 10. Then that made it stupid. But against the Browns, they got a good rush defense, but they'll split him out. I think I'm just going to go with Cook and just hope that they wouldn't put him out there with a shoulder that's not good. But, like, if you wake up in the morning, which I might wake up in the morning and be like, I feel like Cook's going to play, but that's kind of like smoke and mirrors type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, wait, can't see me.
I don't know. I think you're much safer playing Patterson. I think Cook will end up scoring more if he plays the whole game, but that's the problem. Will he play the whole game? So no. To answer this specific question, no. I do not think you are crazy.
Go with your gut, man. All right, Randy with a question here. How serious is Hollywood Brown's injury, or should I start Mike Williams, Chris Olave, or Robbie Anderson over him?
They finally have a pretty decent matchup. I mean, the Panthers are kind of easy in the secondary, but they're kind of not. The problem is, he had this huge blow-up game last week, and he's had really nothing other than that. His injury, I don't think is too bad. I think he's going to play. I honestly think Olave is probably the play out of all of these. But if you don't like the Andy Dalton factor, which I think Andy Dalton is actually probably a better quarterback than Jameis Winston as far as accuracy and taking control and care of the ball, then go with Hollywood. I like Williams as well. There's no way I'm playing Robbie Anderson over any of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, Hollywood got hurt on Friday. That's, I guess, the concern there. It seems like they're talking about him being more of a gonna-play kind of guy. He's definitely had a lot of targets, but I don't know. Rondale Moore is supposed to come back too. That may take a little bit of difference. We've seen Dortch kind of move up. I think Olave or Mike Williams would kind of be my choice here. Probably Mike Williams first with Keenan Allen out.
Yeah. My only reason for Olave is I think he'll be involved the entire game, as I think that'll be more of a back and forth. I don't see Houston as banged up as the Chargers defense is. Their offense Davis Mills hasn't looked good, but maybe at home, maybe they can string some magic together. But yes, it's one of those two. Go with your gut on either one. I'm fine. You're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to listen to Rob. I'm like, that's smart. Rob's a smart guy.
That's what my mom says. All right. Who should I start over? Start at a receiver. Dortch, Judy, McLaurin, or Ayuk. And then we'll go into the next part.
I like McLaurin to keep it going, but I'm probably going to go Judy.
Yeah, that's going to say Judy too, man.
I'm going to go Judy. I told you 2 weeks ago when he got hurt, I said he's the glue. And they didn't look great last week, but he got a bunch of targets. And I think Russ is going to go off against the Raiders. So I'm going to go Judy.
All right. Also for flex, do I use one of my wide receivers or one of these backs? Akers, Stevenson, Etienne, Hilaire, White. Rondale White or Algier.
Yeah, I really like, and I didn't like him in the preseason, at least being drafted how he was. I've mentioned this. I really like the trajectory of Akers at this point in time. If you can go out and get Akers on the cheap before kickoff tomorrow, I know that the game's not till Monday night, but I think that as this season gets going, Darrell Henderson falls further to the wayside and Akers catapults himself, into the RB 1-2 area. I just have that feeling about him right now. And I think Stevenson's going to be involved. I think ETN's going to be involved, like we said. But the point is, the reason I'm going to just take McLaurin and flex him is that I always would like to flex a running back. It's what I've kind of said this year, even. But as I'm starting to look at things, it's like wide receivers are doubling up running backs across the board. And a lot of that has to do with the stud running backs not coming through yet in these first 3 weeks. And some of it has to do with there's no real one running back team. I mean, there's a couple. I mean, kind of. The Giants are, I guess. Kind of the Colts, but they use Hines a little. But like every team splits. Akers is a split. Stevenson's a split. ETN's a split. Hilaire is working his way towards the split. Not there yet, but not against the Bucks. I'm not playing him. So I'm just going to go with McLaurin. Give me the guy that's got a shot to get 80 yards, 6 catches, and a touchdown on any given Sunday without much effort.
All right. You know what? Randy just joined us. He had asked before if I could tag him. I did not tag him. He was talking about Hollywood Brown, Mike Williams, Chris Olave, and Robbie Anderson. If you want to just go over that again real quick for Mr. Randy.
Yeah, real quick. Say Mike Williams or Olave. I like Olave slightly over Williams, most because I don't think that Chargers are going to have to throw. I like Williams, though, but I think Olave will be involved for the entire game because I think it'll be back and forth. But Rob is going with Williams over Olave, and I'm fine with that as well. So flip a coin between those two. I think that Hollywood is not just the guy anymore. They got Rondale, they got Dortch, and no one in the world is playing Robbie Anderson.
All right. Jeremy with the question here. I need a wide receiver and a flex. Pittman, Metcalf, Jacobs, Stevenson, Carter, Irv Smith. I'm not flexing Irv. Would you start him over Kittle? I'm really considering it.
No, you start Kittle.
Yep.
You start Pittman.
Yep.
And it's tough now.
I want to say Stevenson.
It's Stevenson or Metcalf for me.
Yeah, same here. I'm going to go with Stevenson just because they're going to need him in that James White role this week, especially with the backup quarterback.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. I would probably go Metcalf, but because Geno Smith is the epitome of terrible, I would probably just go with what Rob said because I'm fine with that too. But you're definitely playing Pittman.
All right. Drop Ramsey to pick up Colts or Lions. I see Rams and Colts having long-term value.
No.
I wouldn't either. You stay with the Ramsey. Jeremy with another one here. My ABG wide receivers are crap. Anyway, we could pick up 2 and flex out this. Richie James, no clue who he is. Russell Gage, Claypool, DPJ. Is Taysom Hill worth a flex considering my desperation and a weak lineup?
I'd go with Richie James and Claypool. I think Claypool's going to have a pretty solid week against the Jets this week. I think that game's going to be pretty well scored.
I'm going to probably agree with you on that. Claypool is going to be the mystery for me. That's your third. That's the Jets' third cornerback. You're going to have Sauce and Reed on the outside. Their third corner isn't the greatest, and I think Hall's out if I'm not mistaken. So that could be definitely something to pay attention to. All right, Chad with the question here. Half point PPR, start 1, flex 1. Brandon Cooks, Devonta Smith, Mr. Dubs, Palmer, Hunt, or Penny for your thoughts.
I really don't want to sit Devonta, but I think I'm just going to go Cooks and Devonta.
I may go Cooks I'm going to go Devonta and Hunt on this one. I kind of love what Cleveland's doing in their run game, man. I don't know what's going on, but I don't think you can go wrong with either of those three, to be honest with you. Target share, like Guess was saying, definitely target share is higher. I mean, obviously it's a passing league now. I think Cleveland's kind of the outs of that everybody trying to throw the ball. They're the opposite. We're going to run with our two guys.
I'm playing the ebbs and flows with Cooks. He had a down week last week. Ebbs and flows is what ABG talks about. For 6 years running now, we can't look at last week and worry about that. If Cooks had a game like he normally does last week, I don't think anybody would be asking about him. This is like the first time I can remember Brandon Cooks being on in questions.
All right. I'm going to continue through the questions. We have some YouTube guys on here. So one thing I will say is just remember to like, share, and comment, guys. Tim says that you need to share. He'll share his 16-ounce Red Bull with you.
I need to listen to myself, homie, but
I stream Kirk or Carr, maybe Gino with a throw-up emoji. Yeah, I don't even put Gino in that conversation.
Carr is tough this week against the Broncos. And I do think that Kirk is the polar opposite. In case you weren't here in the beginning, he's really bad in those night primetime games. So maybe he's like really amazing in the morning. We'll find out in a couple hours, 12 hours to be exact. I'd probably go Carr. I think I would stream Carr. I like Kirk, but against the Saints, Carr is at home, correct? Against the Broncos?
Yes.
And he has to get Devontae Adams going. So I'm going to go with Carr.
All right. I'm going to agree with you. Kirk Cousins is somebody I thought was going to do outstanding. I think they're going to be a higher scoring game in London, but Carr being at home, he's going to have to play catch up, especially what Guess is thinking Russell Wilson. I'm kind of thinking the same thing for Russ too. So, all right, I got Evans and DK as my wide receivers, Devonta Smith in the flex, have Madison, Dame, Harris, Michael Carter, and Brandon Cooks on the bench. I'd say that's who I'd have to roll with this week. Any insight?
I mean, my only flop would be Cooks for DK.
Yeah, same here.
But I think with that, you're basically trading. DK has a higher potential for a touchdown. Cooks is going to get you more receptions. Cooks has DK's got a slightly easier matchup.
They're playing the Lions. I was actually just about to say the same thing. They're playing against the Lions, whose offense is banged up. You're not sure how that offense is going to go. I would say that the opportunity makes more sense for DK. Brandon Cooks, he's right, is going to be targeted, and as Houston will probably be playing a catch-up game. I think DK is, especially with last week. He never changed last week's points, but he looked better. Yeah. Gino was looking his way.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right. I'm sorry if I pronounced this wrong. Arjun Paul. Who would you sit out of the three? Garrett Wilson, Ayuk, or Juju? Full PPR.
Typically, I'm not big on Juju. Rob is big on Juju, especially this week. And because I think he could be needed, as Rob will point out to you, I'm sure, and you get a chance to get Sunday Night Magic, even though Ayuk is Monday Night Magic, I will sit Ayuk. I think the Wilson, Moore is going to have the biggest game with Zach Wilson back, but Garrett Wilson's not going to just disappear. I think that game's going to be back and forth. I think I want a piece of the 1 o'clock action. Give me Garrett Wilson, and I'll take the Sunday night with Juju. I just think that's probably the safest full-point PPR.
49ers have me a little worried too, man. I'm going to agree with him on that. That just because even Jimmy, you could tell the frustration he has with the offense. They're just not moving the ball the same, and not having the run game is definitely hurting them. All right, CCAC Sports, Ramondre versus Green Bay, ETN versus Philly, or Josh Jacobs versus Denver, half-point PPR.
I like Ramondre a lot this week. ETN versus Philly, though, it's really a toss-up between those two CCAC. I'm going to go with ETN. I think that this is a big bust-out week for him. Ramondre had the big week last week. Ebbs and flows is how it goes. And ETN is yet to have one. So because of the coin flip between the two, I'm taking ETN versus Philly in a game that probably will be more fast paced and higher scoring because Green Bay is going to look to slow it down. It's like their new offense. We can't think of Green Bay of old. That's not what they are this year so far. They're slow it down. It's okay to get 1 or 2 first downs and run and have to punt. And you know what? We haven't talked about the game yet, and we will in a few minutes, but I honestly don't think that the Patriots are going to be at much of a disadvantage with Hoyer. Mac Jones wasn't lighting the world on fire.
He wasn't.
So it's not like the running game, which is what the Patriots have kind of relied on. But if you look at it, the past couple of weeks, they really haven't, because Myers went off, and then Aguilar had a good game, and then Parker had a good game. So they're going to use those. I think with Brian Hoyer, we haven't really talked about the game, but I think with him, I think Hunter Henry is going to get involved. I think he's going to use the tight ends, which is something Mac Jones wasn't really doing. So I don't think it's so much of a slam dunk for Romandre this week. Even though I like him, I'm going to go with ETN, and I'm going to try and catch lightning in a bottle that way because he hasn't had it yet.
Totally agree, man. I think it's ETN week. All right. CCAC's going to agree with you. He said he would go with Ayuk, doesn't like Garoppolo with Ayuk, and Arjan Paul gave him the okay. Ooh, I like the name, the Joker. Who to start for the flex full PPR? Jeff Wilson Jr., Rashad Penny, or Ramondre Stevenson?
I'm probably going to go Penny.
Woo. Yeah, I'm going to say Penny too, actually. I have Detroit everywhere, but I want to start Penny in so many different ways.
I'm probably just going to go Penny. It's the easier matchup out of the three. I'm not big on Jeff Wilson, the Joker. If it's the first time that you've tuned into us, if it is, thank you. And I just talked about Ramondre. I like him this week, but I don't think he's as big of a slam dunk because I don't think Hoyer is that big of a downgrade from Mac Jones. I think that their offense is going to be just fine. I think a lot of people are going to take the Packers in Survivor, and as a Packers fan, I'm nervous to begin with, but it wouldn't be surprising if the Patriots beat them. Because that's the type of weird.
Bill Belichick, you can never know, man.
That's it. I mean, I do think Green Bay is going to win, but he had this big week last week. I'm going to go with Rashad Penny playing against Detroit, and I just think that's the safest. He's holding on to that job. He's holding off Walker.
All right, Josh with the question here. Should I play Lamar Jackson with the rain or Jalen Hurts for DFS? Great question.
I'd probably play Jalen Hurts just because even though the secondary for the Bills is still ridiculously banged up, their defense to me is still better than the Jags. And Jalen Hurts has many more weapons. He's got probably a worse tight end, but that's about it. His running backs are better. His wide receivers are better. He's healthier. And he's playing against the lesser of two defenses. So I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts.
Just to give a heads up, I agree with you on that one. That's supposed to be a rainy game as well. It sounds like it's worse weather, though, in Baltimore than it would be.
Yeah, they're in the same exact area. Philly is right there in that armpit of the U.S.
All right. R.A. Avila coming through with Jefferson versus Lattimore or Debo versus the Rams, half-point PPR.
Jefferson versus Lattimore, it's like if they were playing against anybody other than the Saints and Lattimore, this would be 100% sure the ebbs and flows. Jefferson, big week. But I do think they look to get him involved. It's been 2 weeks in a row now. He hasn't done anything. I like Debo. The Rams scare me a little more than Lattimore does. So I'm going to go with Jefferson.
I agree. I think New Orleans is going to be on the field a little bit more, that defense. So RA is agreeing with you. Olave is going to be hot tomorrow. Michael Thomas out. Landry questionable. Kamara injured. Olave will be the main target. We went back for you, Randy. He said he missed it. We went back, but Tim is also giving you the heads up. Olave.
Yeah.
That's who Guess was going with. All right, so Jeremy with a question here. So flex, DPJ, Gage, or Hill. I feel all three could put up nothing.
We saw Gage come through last week. I mean, only Evans came back. If anything, I mean, that sort of takes a little coverage away. I mean, I don't like any of these three. If it's Taysom Hill, I'm only really want to play him as a tight end. If my tight ends have been giving me 0, like Cole Kmet, then you might as well take a shot. But this is a flex, and you can play anything. I'm going to answer this one. I want you to post in the group, Jeremy, and I'll make sure to answer it tonight when we're done with the show. Sitting on the couch watching a scary movie. I'll flip through. I want you to post your waivers. I want to see running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. So let's see if we can fit something else. Because at this point, with those three, Gage could have a good game again. I think it's going to be a little bit of back and forth. We haven't gotten to the game yet, but I do think the Bucs win. And at this point, I'd just be like, Hill, the hell with it. But I want to see what else is out there. So let me see that.
Remember, guys, to like, share, and comment. We appreciate you as always.
He said it's ABG League. Well, I guess you don't want to share it with
I like it. Tim saying, I've been an hour and 13 minutes and counting. We appreciate you, man. Keep on chugging with us, man. We're going to get you to that championship and win it all. Yeah. All right. Full PPR flex. Hey, Deshaun, Josh Palmer, Adam Thielen, DJ Moore. Just before you answer, subscribe, guys. I see these questions coming in from YouTube all over the place. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're weekly, Tuesdays, recorded shows Friday and Saturdays, and then live questions and answers on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, typically, like Rob said, it's a Tuesday show all the time. And usually we record and post on Saturday the game shows, and we do a Sunday morning show. But because of the London game, we're doing the Saturday and Sunday shows tonight, so there will be no show tomorrow. So subscribe, so anytime that we're live or post anything to YouTube, you get a notification. Deshaun, you want to read his question for us?
Yeah, full PPR flex, Joshua Palmer, Adam Thielen, or DJ Moore.
Listen, I like Palmer this week. The problem is, unless Davis Mills wakes up and shows us, a little bit of what he showed us last year, I feel like the Chargers could get up big. And even with their banged up defense, I just don't have too much good faith in the Houston offense. I like Cooks, as I've told a couple people above, but that's a volume play because that's what we're after. Palmer could be the opposite of a volume play. Now, could he score 1 or 2 of the first 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 touchdowns from Justin Herbert? Sure, and give you a good game. DJ Moore, he gets that squeaky wheel, gets the grease, right? And they're going against Arizona, which is definitely beatable. So I don't love it, but I might do that. I mean, he kind of talked up, and Baker's had some bad throws, but he's had some bad routes and a couple drops. So I don't know. It's like, is this Odell all over again? But squeaky wheel gets the grease, so it's kind of intriguing. I called the Adam Thielen touchdown last week. I think he does score a touchdown this week. And if they look to shut out Jefferson like they should, even though I think Jefferson could still have a pretty good game comparatively speaking to others. And I don't even like this guy, Rob. But I'm going to go Thielen.
My main man, Thielen.
I don't even like him. He's a sit-down old man candidate of the year.
I honestly was going to say DJ Moore.
And that would be my second choice.
Yeah, I just think DJ Moore. We haven't gone over that game yet, and we will in a few. Squeaky wheel, like you said, squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's there. You're right. Drops, bad throws. I think this is going to be a higher scoring game than people think, especially that Christian McCaffrey, even though healthy, may not play. A lot of pickups there too. Again, we'll get into it, but
Yeah.
I
don't
think
mind.
DJ Moore is going to be needed more.
Put him in. I don't mind it.
All right. He said this is the ABG League. Frank, don't worry about it, man. You can always go back and watch the video. But you're going to say something.
Yeah, it's great. We live in the age of on demand.
Bring it back
So,
up.
we often hear, I'm super late, or I'm not going to be able to watch the show, or I tuned in late, or I missed the show. Everything is recorded. Everything. Even stuff you don't think is recorded is recorded. Just ask Alexa. So you could just go back and watch it, buddy. You'll be able to catch it all. Or you can ask us again.
All right. Jeremy's here.
Man.
I'm 0-3, 0 threat to you two. Just sounds like you had a little tough luck, man. It's only week 3. There's still much time left.
Yeah, you could be 11-3.
It's amazing, man. What's funny? It's I'm really down on my team this week. I'm like, Jamar Chase didn't give me anything that I needed. I'm going against Tyreek Hill. I'm like, oh man, what a great start. But you know what? It happens. And we're gonna pivot and try to make it work, man. That's what you're here for. All right. Do you prefer a running back or a wide receiver for your flex? That's a great question.
I feel like my Alexa was talking to your Alexa because I pretty much touched on that.
Yep.
Technically, traditionally, always prefer a running back. But this year, looking at trends and statistics, just is sort of wavering me a little because wide receivers are far outscoring running backs. I feel like that data is a little skewed. Statistics can lie. We've had some of the big end running backs flounder in the beginning of the season. But what's going to happen is they'll pick it up and then those numbers will shrink. Also, what you have is more running backs that are sharing their job. We've never seen this many backfields where you could not only draft 2 running backs, but start 2 running backs. You're almost at a point where it's like if you own Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, you could start them both in 1 week. And those would be your 2 running backs. And you just be like, that's okay with me. You're almost at a point where you could be like, maybe not yet, but eventually, I got Michael Carter, I got Breece Hall. I'll just start those 2. And then if one of them blows up, all right. If they both do okay, all right. Rather than pick and choose. If I got Aaron Jones, I got A.J. Dillon. I don't know what to do. I'll just play them both. We're almost at that point. So depends on the running back and the wide receiver for me. Whereas in the past, I would always defer to the running back. Everything is situational. Everything is based on matchups. Everything's based on ebbs and flows. That is something that people don't pay enough attention to, that we stress on. Frank, you're new to us this year. I love it. You're our first Patreon subscriber. I love it. Thank you. So much appreciated. But one thing that we harp on, and we have for 6 seasons now, is football is about ebbs and flows. It's not about what happened last week. It's not even about what you think is going to happen. It's predicting what's unpredictable and being correct. Because that's how you become successful. I mean, that's where the birth of this show pretty much came from. Rob would ask me a question, I'm like, I kind of feel like this is going to happen. And Rob would be like, oh, that guy sucks. We're like, yeah, he has sucked, but he's got opportunity and he's in the spot for it. And lo and behold, he's like, we should do a show. I was like, okay. And
I said we even have a great name for it. Answers by Guess.
Yeah. And that's what it pretty much, you have to zig when others are zagging. You got to think outside the box. You got to be a step ahead, right? It's all of our hashtags, all of our slogans. You see it right there. The inside scoop from outside the box. People are thinking inside the box too often. The box is not where it's at. All right. So it depends. Do I prefer running back or wide receiver for the flex? I prefer who is in the best position with all things considered. Long story short, or long story long.
Remember to like, share, comment, guys. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to us. All right. Where am I at here? Jeremy's saying he has too many injuries, and that means that your players are going to come back.
Yep.
So that's a way to look at it too. Antonio, Patterson, Connor, or Woods, PPR need one.
I kind of like Patterson, but I'm going to go Connor.
That's exactly, you took the words right out of my. I'm like, I really want to go Patterson, but I think Connor's going to be needed. We'll go into that game soon. All right. What's up there, Alan? Dude, we had a whole segment for you. Make sure you go back and watch it. A lot of good answers there. All right. Antonio with one. Dylan, Woods, or Lazard need one PPR.
I want to say Dylan, but if this was Tuesday, and this is why Tuesday I had to show answers with guests. This is just me. And so many questions. I'm answering them and every single one I'm like, guys, it's Tuesday. Like, I love that you're asking the questions, but my mind is going to change. So you got to come Saturday night when we do the big show, because we're only doing one show. And Antonio, this might have been a question from then. I'm not sure if it was, but if it was asked on a Tuesday, I probably would have said Dylan. But now I think Lazard. I think Lazard because I think as the week went on, I'm sort of like, you know what? Everybody thinks the Patriots are going to stink. I think they might be better with Hoyer than Jones. Jones wasn't really doing that well. He was lighting up one receiver each week. Are they 1-2, Patriots?
Yeah.
So it's not like he was world beating. He wasn't even world beating last year. I like Mac Jones, don't get me wrong. But you're not putting in Zappy. You're not putting in a first-time starter. You're putting in Hoyer. I mean, he's been in the league how many years? 12?
38.
Yeah, like he's been around the block. Nothing is going to knock him off, his saddle. He knows what he's stepping into. He's a veteran. He's going to get the ball to the open guy. Will he make some more mistakes? Sure. Will he be a little shaky? Probably. Is his arm as good as Mac Jones? Maybe not. But I do think that they're going to be okay. And I feel like Lazard with a PPR is just so much safer. And he'll get a touchdown for you. He'll get targeted in the red zone. So you have that guarantee. If they get close, just hope that they throw it and they don't run it, because Dylan will get it if it's too close.
All right. Do you want to go back into the games real quick to try to just get them over? Or do you want to just go through these comments here?
Let's bang these comments out.
All right. Alan, what's up, bro?
What's up?
You called Herbert last year. You guess sure did.
Yeah, and if you didn't see it, you want to go back and rewatch, because I got two guesstimators tonight. One of them is tied to Herbert.
All right. On a much needed vacation after Ian. Hey, man, hope you're safe. Cabin in the Woods, Gainesville for the weekend. Hey, man. Yeah, definitely praying for everybody. Crazy what we're seeing as far as pictures up here in New York. Glad to hear that at least you're on a little needed vacation and that you're safe, man. All right. Frank with the question. Akers, Hilaire, Stevenson, ETN need two.
Yeah, I know this roster all too well, Frank. I'm going to go with ETN because I took him over Stevenson. Hilaire, I just don't trust against this Bucs rush defense. I know they're a little banged up. He had his big week 1. He was pretty good week 2. A little bit last week. I think McKinnon is still getting involved. I think that this could be the week in the big stage where they maybe get Pacheco a little more involved. Will they ever have Ronald Jones active? Who knows? But I'm staying away from that. I think it's really close between Stevenson and Akers for me. Everybody in the preseason was so high on Akers, and Rob will tell you, and anybody that watched will tell you, I was so low on Akers. But about a week or two ago, I started to feel the Akers train coming. And it's a tough matchup against the Niners. But I'm going to go for the Monday Night Magic. And I'm going to go with Akers and ETN.
I'm going to agree with you on that one, man. All right.
All right, let's do the 2 p.m.s or the 4 p.m.s, and then we'll come back. We'll start at Allen's and Tim down there.
All right. Arizona Cardinals at the Carolina Panthers. Kind of mentioned this game already, but Rondell Moore coming back. Dortch getting love, banged up, but should be back. I'm sorry, banged up, but is playing. They were worried about Hollywood ending up on the report. You just recommended James Conner to somebody. Let's talk about that offense. On the flip side, Carolina, I mentioned DJ Moore at the Greasy Wheel. You had mentioned Greasy Wheel. Is this going to be a game where CMC is a little banged up? Could this be the starter where you start seeing Foreman, where you start seeing Hubbard? Does the tight ends get more involved now that CMC is hurt?
Well, you mentioned it. I mentioned it on the Tuesday show. CMC hasn't really done anything in the first 3 quarters of any game. His points, his fantasy points, his production, pretty good, pretty solid. Less than CMC standards, but pretty solid for a running back. And it all, for the most part, has come in the 4th quarter. So all they have to do is just keep doing what they're doing, and he'll be there in the 4th quarter. The Cardinals defense, the Cardinals as a whole, man, what were they, 11-0? 7-0? Something ridiculous. And then AJ Green turned super old. He turned a zombie, ball off his helmet or something against Green Bay. Green Bay won the game ever since then. Off the track. So Carolina's offense, we talked about DJ Moore. This is nobody's a bigger. Actually, there's probably plenty more, but nobody's a bigger Baker fan than me. I mean, I got his freaking his helmet. I got a damn piece of wood with his face on it. I don't even know where the hell it came from, but I fucking have it. Sorry, pardon my French, but I do. And I don't even know what it is. I don't know why, but I got it. Like, I'm a big Baker fan, and I'm rooting for him, but he just does not look good. He doesn't look good. And part of me agrees with DJ Moore and his whining. But part of me is on Team Baker still. It's like, dude, you dropped some passes. You're running the wrong routes. Like, yes, I'm missing you on some, but both of us got work to do. So, squeaky wheel gets the oil. Let's see. I'm fine with a DJ Moore play. Laviska's probably not going to play. He had his 2 plays last week. I was so excited. I was like, Laviska! I texted Rob the exact same thing. But he's probably not going to play. He looks like he's on the wrong side of questionable. So it comes down to you have 2 people. You have CMC, you have DJ Moore. I want nothing to do with Deontay Foreman. I loved Deontay Foreman in 2017 when he was a rookie, or 18. I think it was maybe even 7. It was 17. Mahomes' rookie year.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh, this guy is so good. And he just could never get it going or get healthy with Houston. And I'm done with him. I don't want, no, Chuba is the better one, but no, not this week. And there's no reason to. Maybe if there was buys involved. So it's really just those 2 guys. I'm not messing with anybody else. Terrace Marshall's turned into nothing. Shai Smith, nothing. Robbie Anderson, I don't want anything to do with them. And as far as Arizona goes, we talked about them pretty much. Hollywood's got the hurt foot, right? He had the one big game last week, so now everybody wants to put him back in the lineup. You missed it. Rondale's coming back. Connor's going to have a nice game this game. Really like Connor. Ertz, if he could catch the ball, geez. And George is ascending. So I think you missed the Hollywood show last week. You can't chase those points. He drops too many passes too. So it's like this game is a game I kind of stay away from unless I get any of those 4.
All right, let's go on to the next one here. New England Patriots at your Green Bay Packers. You had mentioned Hoyer. You're saying that he has the potential of being better. Talk about who we're starting from the New England side. And Green Bay, you like Lazard. You were mentioning Dylan early in the week, but are you changing your mind on Dylan, or was it just the options that other people were giving you?
Yeah, so the Patriots, like I said, like I had mentioned before, you ask me something on Tuesday, I feel a certain way. The week goes on, my way changes. Like, I would have been like, oh, yeah, Packers, sit all your Patriots except Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson because they're going to have to run. The quarterback's terrible. But then you get the week gets going, and you're like, wait a minute, it's Hoyer. He's a 12-year vet or probably even longer. He's been serviceable before. He's got a pretty good arm. He's relatively accurate. He's smart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been a backup in the league this long. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's got decent weapons. Mac Jones really hasn't been doing much. He hasn't been lighting the world on fire. One thing Mac Jones hasn't been doing that I think Hoyer will do is use the tight ends. Mac Jones has not been looking at Jonnu Smith. He's not been looking at Hunter Henry. I think Hoyer is going to catapult those two into fantasy relevance this week and for the coming weeks as it gets going. Rob, I was just mentioning, I think Hoyer is going to catapult Smith and Henry into tight end relevance for this week and the coming weeks, as long as he is the quarterback. Because I think as a backup quarterback, as a heady quarterback, smart quarterback, has been in the league for years, you're going to use all of your weapons. You're going to use your tight ends. You're going to use your running backs. You're going to use your wide receivers. And that's something Mac Jones really wasn't doing. He was keying in on one receiver. Aguilar had a big game. Myers had a big game. Parker had a big game. That's about it. The running backs did their thing. So I don't think that the Patriots are all downgraded. But if you're somebody that went out and picked up Devontae Parker because of his week last week, you're in the same exact boat as the people that picked up Nelson Aguilar before week 3 after his big week in week 2. And then how'd that turn out? So we got to stop chasing last week's points. I'm not saying Parker's going to have a bad day, but Green Bay Packers defense is for real. And it is a backup quarterback, and he's a veteran backup quarterback who's not going to just key in on one guy and chuck bombs. He's going to be smart with his decisions. He's going to move the ball. He's going to be methodical. And that's not repeated 30-yard bombs to Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, and Myers is out. So look for the tight ends to be involved. Look for the running backs to be involved. And for the Packers, I changed my mind. I did a flip with if somebody would have asked me Dillon or Lazard on Tuesday versus Dillon or Lazard now. And it's mostly because of that reason. Because on Tuesday, I would have been like, oh, the Packers are going to kill him. It's going to run. But I do think the Patriots will be able to score a little. Because of that, I think Packers will have to throw the ball a little. Lazard's the best they got.
All right. I like Dubs a little bit too. I don't know if he would be worth a shot. I know you mentioned Bobby Tunyon as well, especially if in a game that you're going to have to actually not keep up, but if New England's keeping up with them, those could be some other options, especially a tight end. I mean, tight end. So I have Gesicki in a couple leagues. I have guys that are giving me 2-3 points. I'm just like, please, anything. So
yeah, we had talked about Tunyon a little bit before as well. Not the biggest fan, but he looked good last week.
All right, Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. You're high on Russell Wilson this week. You had mentioned Judy as an option for somebody. Talk about that offense. And on the flip side, Raiders are just getting pummeled all over the place. They start the game off well, but then they lose it. Did Devonta Adams make a mistake? I don't think he did. I think it's still a team that's kind of trying to figure themselves out. Who are we starting?
I like Russ a lot this week. I think the Vegas defense is terrible. I think he gets it going. I think he's got all the weapons for it. Albert O. I was gonna attempt it. That was my no face. That was my no face. Judy, Sutton, my boy, Javonte. I think with Gordon getting a little banged up, maybe they do the smart thing and let's make it 75-25 this time, Coach. What do you say? And as far as the Raiders, I do think that they look to get Devontae going a little bit more. No Renfro. So we'll see. It's going to be Waller, Adams, and Jacobs. I mean, like what else? I mean, I thought Abdullah would be something. He's nothing. They're not getting what's his face? Your boy, the running back, going.
White, not White.
Yeah, Zamir.
Yeah, Zamir White. Yeah.
And so I think this game will be a relatively good, high-scoring game because I think Russell Wilson gets it going. I think they let him throw the ball. I think he's going to throw the ball.
A lot of people picked up Hollins. I know you. I think I mentioned on Tuesday that Hollins isn't the answer. Could he be kind of, somebody in disguise that we shouldn't be starting, but a lot of people are?
He's had games like this before. He's been around the league a long time. I want to say maybe since like 15 or 16.
Yeah, Philly, right?
Philly. Something came out this week where he actually, before this season, or maybe it was middle of last season, he wished he could just play special teams. Like he likes playing special teams and didn't even really want to be a receiver anymore. It was just like, yeah, I just want to do special teams. And he sort of like got pushed into being a wide receiver with the Raiders. So I don't know. Like he's got skills, but he has one play. That's it. And I don't know if the Broncos are the defense to do that against. So I had nothing pushing me in any direction to go get Mac Hollins. Some people did. A lot of people chased last week's points. I would not. If he does something here, Renfro is still out, so there's a shot that they're going to need somebody. But I really think they look to get Devontae going in this game, figure out something. He's got to get open, and I don't want anything to do with Mac Hollins.
All right, let's go on to something.
Noise over here. That's why I keep looking.
Yeah, I was wondering. I'm like, are you seeing a ghost or something like? Is Baker talking to you from the wood?
That's what it is.
Kansas City Chiefs at the Tampa Bay Bucks. I told you I was high on Juju. I don't know why I have a feeling about Juju this week. I just think it's going to be a higher scoring game. I think you're right. I think the Bucks do win this game, especially that Evans is back. But you're not high on Hilaire, but he's been playing pretty good. Pacheco's still getting kind of a little bit of love here too, man. McKinnon seems to touch the ball out of everybody the most. Talk about that running back situation. And then who besides Juju can we see getting the ball? Kelsey's a must start and always a start, so we don't even need to mention him. But on the flip side, Tom Brady just doesn't look like the same Tom Brady to me this year. It could be just all the injuries and stuff like that. Julio Jones and Chris Godwin game time decisions on a Sunday night football. Are we trusting putting those guys in, or are we starting somebody from earlier?
Well, as far as the Chiefs, the wide receivers, I'm in the same boat that I was in before week 1. I really don't want anything to do with it because they're all exactly the same, and who knows which one's going to do it. MVS, Juju, Hardman, Sky Moore. I think Sky Moore is going to eventually become something. It could be this week. A lot of times stuff like that seems to happen in these night primetime games where a guy just sort of pops off. But more than likely it won't be, but maybe he just busts one big one. Juju, I could see it. He's the most accomplished out of all of them. He's the veteran out of all of them. I implored people after week 1 to trade CEH after his big week 1. I doubled down on it after week 2. Week 3, now you're stuck with him. I do think Pacheco, I called it a few weeks ago. A lot of people did, but I called it a few weeks ago that he would be the starter by around week 8 or 9. That means he's got to start getting more burn. This is a terrible matchup. I don't even want Pacheco in there against the Bucs. I don't want him getting more burn in this game. So if Andy Reid is smart, he probably does the same thing. And let's keep Pacheco out of this one. Keep him doing the same thing he's doing. Let's use the veterans, McKinnon, CEH. We don't want to put our rookie out there against this vaunted defense. Travis Kelce, go for it. But he is in a little bit of a decline. I do think Noah Gray, Fortson, those guys, I feel like they're coming for it. In Tampa Bay, Mike Evans is fine. Leonard Fournette, let's see if he can finally bust out of it here. I really like Rachaad White for this team. If anything happens to Fournette, that's a name that I'm giving you pre-guesstimator. They drafted him to do something. He's yet to do much. I don't want to take a chance on Godwin or Julio on Sunday night, do you? Godwin hasn't played in like 30 years.
3 years, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Julio is 103 years old.
I'd rather take a shot on Gage, to be honest. If you need somebody, Gage would be the one that I would be looking at if you don't have anybody else. I don't think Perriman's playing, but I wouldn't even probably trust Perriman anyways. He seems to be very injury prone.
And they'll have Beasley and Scotty Miller again, but I'm off that train.
All right, Monday Night Football here. The Los Angeles Rams against the San Francisco 49ers. Rams played okay last week. I don't know. It really wasn't too convincing for me. You're high on Akers starting to ascend and starting to move up. I'm actually on the same boat as you. I'm starting Akers this week in a league with the hope and wish that San Francisco did not look like a very good team to me, man. I think I mentioned it earlier in the show. Jimmy's not liking the offense. They seem to be all discombobulated. I don't know. Let's talk about who are we starting from both of these teams.
Yeah, well, it was a tough matchup against the Broncos last week in Denver. They didn't look great, but the defense they were playing against is pretty great. And likewise, the Broncos offense didn't look very good. And that's because the 49ers defense is pretty good. So all things considered, here we have the 49ers against a defense that's probably better and an offense that's probably better than Denver. So the Rams, that's why I like Akers. I mean, Javonte and Gordon, the combo that nobody understands why it occurs, they did pretty well against the 49ers. And then Bosa now hurt, right? I think they got
not that Bosa.
Didn't Nick Bosa get hurt last week?
Oh, did he? Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm thinking of Joey Bosa.
I thought Nick got hurt last week. Maybe I could be wrong. I thought somebody got hurt in their game last week.
Concussion. You're right.
Yeah. So is he out? Clear protocol?
I don't believe so. Let me take a look.
So anyways.
Keep on going.
Yeah, Denver looked pretty good running the ball. So I feel like the Rams could do pretty good running the ball. And they have Cooper Kupp to offset it and to keep the defense honest. So I think Akers has a shot in this one because I do think he's starting to get his legs back under him. He's way better of a running back than Darrell Henderson. So I like Akers as a play here. And as far as like Allen Robinson, I can't trust him anymore. I can't. I mean, it's been all about Allen Robinson. It was all about him last year. We blamed it on Nagy. We blamed it on Fields. You know what? I'm blaming it on A-Rob now. It's his fault. It's his fault. I can't take it. They didn't look at him week 1. Week 2, he did okay. Last week, he just looked terrible. When they threw him the ball, he was running the wrong routes. He was dropping passes. He was just lackluster. And against this defense, they're going to eat him up if he does it. Ben Skoranek is just wants to just lock down that role. And it wouldn't surprise me if Van Jefferson comes back. They put Van Jefferson on the outside over Allen Robinson because Allen Robinson just looks terrible. So I'm benching him everywhere I can. I cut him in a league. Might not be the smartest thing, but I used to blame Matt Nagy. I used to blame Justin Fields. I'm blaming Allen Robinson at this point because there's no one else to blame. It's gone on for far too long. I'm thinking he might just be Kenny Galladay. And for the 49ers, you want to run on the Jeff Wilson train, good luck to you. I never wanted to be a part of it. You looked pretty good on 1 or 2 runs last week. Against the Rams, it's going to be even more difficult. Broncos are pretty good. Rams are a little bit better. Debo, fine, play him. Ayuk, if you got nothing else. I think Kittle is the best play this week. Wasn't really involved too much last week. Couple plays, couple targets, mostly used as a blocker. And I think they get him because that's going to be Jimmy G's sauce. You talked about Jimmy G didn't look right, didn't look settled. First game back after, he had a little bit of an injury, and then he lost his job to start this year, lost the Super Bowl, or not the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship. So I think Kittle gets him going, but I think Akers is the smartest one here. We got a question down here.
All right. Bosa's okay. It's Joey Bosa was hurt. I was mistaken. Nick's okay. Seems to be. I don't see any injuries from last week.
All right.
All right, Alan. I came over. Me, luckily, 80 miles per hour winds. Oh, holy crap! Glad to hear you're safe, man. All right, that's what I'm hoping with Carter and Harris now. With Zach Wilson coming back and Hoyer now in, I got both those guys knowing they would be used more than other running backs. I definitely have some good depth behind Mixon and Eckler along handcuff Madison. All right. Thoughts on Richie James? He was out targeting all other NY wide receivers before the Shep injury.
He's all they got. That's my thoughts. He's all they got, and he's looked good.
All right. Dortch worth a play this week over Zay Jones.
I don't even know if he's asking about over, but Alan, I know you joined us late, but yeah, we had to submit to the Dortch. So the Dortch gets, we gave him a seal of approval. And Zay Jones, I said, I kind of have a feeling about Zay Jones this week because Philadelphia is going to look to shut down Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk has been the number one target for Trevor Lawrence. He's been the number one playmaker. He is the best wide receiver they have. Zay Jones is going to be left open. Not left open, but definitely won't be bracketed or double covered. So I kind of have a feeling about Zay Jones. But all three of these guys, Richie James that you mentioned, Dortch that you mentioned, Zay Jones that you mentioned, we're only using them if we are Amon-Ra St. Brown owners, Keenan Allen owners, maybe even Hollywood Brown owners, which I'd probably start these guys over Hollywood anyways with his hurt foot and his drops. But all three of these guys we talked about, Alan, and we're fine with them.
All right. Thoughts on Dubs the rest of the season?
Well, Dubs, I gave you Dubs' name on our first preseason show. Nobody knew who he was. Everybody was saying Christian Watson, Christian Watson, Christian Watson. I said, he's not even going to be the best Packers wide receiver. I said, it's going to be Mr. Dubs. Throw it up. So thoughts on him, I like him. I told you he was going to take over that Cobb role. And he's got Rodgers' trust, and he's had it since the preseason. He usually doesn't like throwing to rookies. Devontae Adams wasn't good until his fourth season. So I think Dubs has great prospects. If you own him in the dynasty, it's a great thing. And rest of the season, no problem at all. You should own him.
Yeah, definitely worth your bet spot in my opinion, and then starting, especially during bye weeks as well. You mean Javonte's actually going to get going? Picked him and JT first 2 rounds. Hasn't worked out.
Been 3 weeks.
All right. Brady isn't playing well because he knows he's about to get a divorce after choosing football over family. Yeah, I call it, dude, face looks thin. I don't know. He's not eating well. You could tell he's pissed off all the time.
I will say, okay, Rob, sure. Brady is not worried about a divorce. Brady could get any woman he wants. Let's be honest, guys.
All right, guys. You got Ravi here. Yo, Elijah Moore or Penny tomorrow?
Robbie, we talked about these games. This is why our show's been going over 2 hours. Thank you for joining us. We're so glad that you could. And we just happened to mention that we like Penny. We think that it's great that he's holding on to his job, fighting off Walker. He's got a really good matchup going against Detroit. But Elijah Moore is Zach Wilson's boy. And we're going to hop on that train because everybody's on the Garrett Wilson train. He's been the most involved. Elijah Moore's almost been the least involved, even behind Corey Davis. Zach Wilson's back in town. Elijah Moore, put him in your lineup. in a game that should be relatively back and forth against Pittsburgh versus that soft Pittsburgh defense with no TJ Watt.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you guys being here. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, guys. We do shows Tuesdays. We record for Saturdays that they're posted, as well as live Sunday shows as well. All right, Tyson, with a question here: Patterson or Dalvin Cook at running back 2?
Yeah, we kind of had this question, right?
I believe this was one of the questions earlier.
And I think that, it's. I don't know if it is or it isn't, but I think Patterson is safer because the thing about Dalvin Cook, I think Dalvin Cook is a good play. I think he's going to have a pretty good game if he plays the whole game. I'm nervous about that shoulder. They thought he would be out this week. He's going to play. If he gets popped the wrong way in the first quarter, you're screwed. You're screwed. And you could have had Patterson. I mean, it could wind up that you play Cook and Patterson has 12 and Cook has 10. And then you're just like, whatever. It could wind up flip-flop that. It could wind up both guys in the 20s. But it also, there's a super good chance that Dalvin Cook doesn't make it through this whole game, or that they planned to have Madison going. So this week they do closer to something Minnesota's never really done, 50-50 type split. Because usually it's Dalvin Cook until Dalvin Cook is hurt, and then it's Madison. And you see Madison a little bit, 10%, 15%. But maybe they go into this with a 50-50, so you're not getting the full Dalvin. If he gets hit once the wrong way, he's out. So I think Patterson is safer. So if the rest of your matchup looks good, the rest of your team looks good, I think you just go safe. You play Patterson. Don't love him, but I think it's safer.
All right, Alex, with a question here: Kamara and Keenan Allen for Pitts, Dobbins, and Devonta Smith. What side would you take?
I'm gonna guess that you have Kamara and Keenan as we speak, and you're hoping to get Pitts, Dobbins, and Devonta. I think Kamara's going to have a big week. I think he's going to have a big game in about 11 hours. I think that Andy Dalton's going to help him greatly. The problem is not Kamara, it's Winston. Winston doesn't throw to the running backs, never really has, never did in Tampa. Andy Dalton will. And I think that's Kamara's, that's why we like Kamara, because he catches 80 to 100 footballs a year. And he's got like 7 or something this year through 3 games. That's why people are so down on Kamara. That's why his numbers are low. He hasn't been catching passes, but I think Andy Dalton will throw him the ball. He'll catch passes out of the backfield. That's not Winston's game. Winston's game is drop back, crab leg, chuck it out. That's his role. That's what he does. So if you have Kamara and Keenan Allen, I get it. Keenan Allen's always hurt. Kamara's stunk. You're trying to dump him. I think you'd be smart to wait a week, because I think Kamara's going to go off this week, and I don't like the prospects of Kamara season long. He's got a little bit of an injury. He's getting a little bit older. Injury history last year as well. His court date was pushed back, so I don't think you have to worry about that this season. But if it's dynasty, then you definitely might want to look to get rid of him now rather than later. I like the other side. I'm not huge on Dobbins, but I think he's pretty good, and he's great for depth. Pitts I absolutely love, and Devonta Smith I absolutely love. So I would take those 3, knowing I would have to drop somebody. So my question would be, who are you dropping? But, Alex, I'm not going to make this trade because I think Kamara is going to have a big week, and I think I could do even better than Dobbins next week.
I like it. I do like the Pitts, Dobbins, and Devonta Smith side as well. I think Guess is hitting the nail on the head, though. Kamara has a good game. I think your value goes up that much more after this one. And that's what they're hoping for. As we mentioned all the time, London games, they want high-scoring games. They want them to be into the game. So eventually more and more games could end up over there. All right. Tyson with another question here. Bryce Hall, Akers, Pierce, running back 2. And then any of those guys or DK Metcalf or Mac Hollins at the flex.
Yeah, I don't mind Brees Hall this week, Tyson. I feel like you've tuned in with us before. I feel like the name is familiar. And thanks again. If so, I've mentioned it for a couple weeks now that I'm starting to see Brees Hall become the RB1A, become the 60 in the 60-40 split. Not sure if it's there yet, but last week certainly looked to be that way. Akers, we have talked about relative nauseum tonight. I'm not a big Akers guy, at least going into the season. Did not like him where people were drafting him, but I'm starting to feel like now he's starting to get it. So now you might be able. I told Rob, I was like, in any league I can, I'm trying to trade for Akers right now because his value is still low, and I think once he and the rest of the Rams start to get it together. Pierce, I don't like Pierce this week. I think that Houston's going to be trailing for the majority of the game. I think they're going to get smoked by the Chargers. I know the Chargers defense is hurting. And Davis Mills is somebody I really liked going into the season. He looked really good at last year once he finally got his shot. But he started to look terrible. And if the Chargers run away with this like I think they will, they're going to need to throw to catch up. And I think you're going to see more Burkhead this week than Pierce, which sucks because I'm a huge Dameon Pierce guy. Loved him since before anybody else was talking about him. But I'm going to go with Akers out of those. And I'm going to hope for the Monday Night Magic. The Denver running backs look pretty good at San Francisco, like we just talked about. And I think that the Rams running backs can do the same. And Akers is by far the better of the two. And then any of those guys or DK or Mac Hounds in the flex. I'm going to throw DK in the flex. I like his matchup. I'm going to go with him.
All right. Jeremy with the question here. Better to pick up Hoyer around. I'm sorry, right? Better to pick. Oh, my God. It's starting to get 2 hours and 17 minutes in. Better to pick up with Hoyer around, Parker or Aguilar?
I believe them both. I honestly believe them both. That's why after Aguilar went off in week 2, I was like, yeah, well, that's cool. And Parker went off week 3. I was like, oh, that's cool too. I really have no care. I think that both of them now, including Myers when he gets back, for as long as Mac Jones is out, I think the three of them are relatively equal. And I think the biggest bump is going to come, if you just joined us, the tight ends, who he never used. Mac Jones not used them all year long for the most part. And the running backs, who they have been using, but I think they get a bump. Brian Hoyer, I do not think is a downgrade of drastic amounts. I think, if anything, it will give their offense a little more continuity. It'll be smarter throws. He'll get the ball out to a bunch of guys. I mean, Mac Jones, I'm a fan of Mac Jones. I'm not putting him down. And I just said this a little while ago, but these 3 games, he's just been locking in on one guy, chucking it, and they've been catching it. And the other guys are just sort of like, hey, man, we're here too. But I think Hoyer is going to sort of be able to be methodical and find the open guy. He's not a stud. He's not a superstar, but he's a vet, and he's been around a long time. And backup quarterbacks don't stick around that long unless they know what the hell they're doing. So I would look to see if anybody else is available. But since you're asking me about these two, it'd be Parker.
Agreed. I'd probably go with Parker as well here. All right. Brought to you by 904. What would you change? Jacoby Brissett, Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Damian Harris, Devontae Adams, Gabe Davis, Goddard, Dortch as your flex. on the bench: Prescott, Henderson, Keenan Allen, Boyd, Richie James, Olave, and Renfro. Olave is really the only one that's catching my attention on your bench.
Yeah, and then you're going to take him out for Dortch.
Yeah.
But then you can't put Olave in the flex. You have to put Olave in for Adams and put Adams in the flex.
That is correct.
It's a later game.
All right. Manuel with the question here. Stevenson, Dillon, or Hunt at RB2 PPR?
You kind of had this question. Stevenson, Dillon. I went Dillon. Rob went Stevenson. But then there's another question where some wide receivers were involved. He went Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like they're all super close, which is probably why you're asking the question, Manuel. I'll go with Hunt.
I'm going to go with Hunt as well. I was higher on Hunt than Stevenson. I just think the running game in Cleveland is the way to go. Remember, guys, subscribe on YouTube. We're seeing a lot of YouTube questions. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that we pop up whenever you guys are looking for some fantasy answers. Manuel with another one here. Dubs, Cooks, Olave, or Bateman? Pick 2.
I'm going to go with Cooks and Olave.
I'm going to agree with him on that one. All right. What about Kamara for Pitts and Dobbins? He has the Pitts side. Ooh, this changes the way the conversation goes.
Yeah. So you want to get Kamara. Alex, the only way I'm doing this trade is if it's instant.
Correct.
Like if you could make this trade and it's instant and you could play Kamara tomorrow and you could use the running back, like if Kamara's going to slot in for Dobbins. But then, Alex, I also have to ask you, you're giving up Pitts, man. Please tell me you have Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce or even Darren Waller or George Kittle. Because if it's none of those guys, you're hurting your team, I think, more than you're helping it. Tight end is a terrible wasteland. I'm in it. I'm in that terrible wasteland because I only own Kelce. Oh, okay. I see.
That was going to be my same exact question.
Save me. Yeah, man. You don't want to be in the wasteland that I'm in. It's hot. It's hot. I'm thirsty.
It smells.
It always smells. If it's
I would be okay with that. Yeah, if it's instant.
If it's instant, I'm doing it. Because I think that as long as Winston is not around, Kamara is going to eat. I really 100% feel that Winston is the problem with Kamara. He doesn't throw to his running backs. He doesn't check down. He'll run around. He'll fall backwards. He'll chuck the ball deep rather than look to the side and go, hey, my buddy's standing right there. And Dalton is going to check that. And hopefully, we see that tomorrow. If it goes through instantly, do it. Because otherwise the guy's going to change his mind after tomorrow.
All right. Brought to you by 904. Thank you so much for your advice, gentlemen. That's what we're here for. Why did you put Gabe in the flex? Here, let's just talk about that, actually. And I think you put Adams in the flex.
Yeah, I put Adams in the flex because we said to play Olave. And Olave is a 9 o'clock game Eastern Standard Time. And you don't want to flex an early game. You want to flex the late game. And the reason because, like, let's say you put Olave in the flex. And then for whatever reason, later on the day, Gabe Davis isn't playing. Well, now I can only put Devontae Adams isn't playing because I said to put Devontae in the flex because he's a 4 o'clock and Gabe's 1 o'clock. But either way, let's say either one of them's not playing. Now you can only put a wide receiver in to sub him out. But if you put Olave at wide receiver, Gabe Davis at wide receiver, those are the 2 early games. Now you got Devontae in the flex. Let's just say, I don't know, a meteor hits Vegas. And oh man, we can't play the game. Well, now you can put a running back or a tight end or a wide receiver in the flex in place of Devontae because he was a later game. But if you put the 9:30 game in there, now you're strapped to only one position. You understand? Hopefully it makes sense. You always want, like, you never want to play a Thursday guy in the flex because now that's locked. Now you can only play one position. Flex is meant to be flexible. And when you play an early game in it, it's hard as a rock. You ain't flexing that. You got it? It's locked in.
I like it, man. It's all about strategy, guys. All about that strategy. He had mentioned that he had Andrews. And then thank you, Jeremy. Yes, always look for those hashtags, answers by guest, and the new one, ABGFF.
Right.
Guess we're almost 2.5 hours in. We're going to get your final thoughts here, bud.
Yeah, final thoughts. Like I said, this is when it gets fun. It gets us angry. It gets us aggravated. It gets us frustrated because our guys are injured or they're not performing. But this is when it gets fun because this is when you get to flex. This is when you get to say, well, I have this guy who I could play or this guy I could play. It's no longer just put your studs in there. They'll finally hit their ebb. They'll finally hit their flow. That's what we're all about is the ebbs and flows. So week 4, we are riddled with injuries. Week 5 will probably be the same. Week 6 starts the buys. So this is about to get it going. We've had 3 weeks under our belt. I told you 2 weeks ago. I said, anything that has happened so far or hasn't happened so far, we have to take it with a grain of salt. We cannot overreact. It was what I said before week 1. I said, whatever happens this week, you react, you do not overreact. After week 2, I said, let's go 1 more week, 2 more weeks. That's week 3, week 4. Once we get that first, it used to be quarter of the season. Now you've got something to look at. Now you've got injuries. Now you've got bye weeks. Now is when it gets fun. Now is when you cannot be afraid to admit you were wrong about particular guys and pivot. So as we watch the games tomorrow and we scream and we celebrate, be a step ahead. Stick with answers by guess. Stick to your gut. Look at where you need to go, not where you are and where you've been. Because we're always moving forward. Week 4 is the beginning. This is when it starts to get fun.
I like it, guys. Just want to do real quick one brought to you by 904. You're great. Looking forward to future videos. We look forward to having you guys too. Always ask questions. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell the neighbor's dog who could possibly tell the neighbor, and so on and so forth. We're always looking for people to join the conversation.
Tuesdays, every Tuesday, live answers with guests. Saturdays, recorded shows. Typically, they're recorded and posted right to YouTube and then shared on Facebook and elsewhere. And then Sunday morning is typically a live show. But tonight was the super live, old school, mega show because we have the early morning Sunday game. So anytime we have a London game, if our schedules line up, this is how it'll be. And I'll need to get a Red Bull.
Gives you wings. Remember, guys, we're Fantasy Football's inside scoop from outside the box. Always look for those hashtag answer by guess and ABGFF. Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, do whatever it is on TikTok. Hit the little check button, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. We thank you for watching. Guess, best of luck, bud.
Enjoy the game in the morning.
See you guys.